And we are live. Hey, welcome to Talkin Doctrine. Thank you for joining us this evening. Tonight we have Max Bauer and then the last generation, Brett, with us this evening. Daniel and I both believe that the Bible teaches that the earth is flat. Max is, I don't know exactly where he is at. I don't think he believes with science.
I'm somewhere in the fair to midland ground.
There you
But
go.
no, I'd like to talk a lot more about science, but I want to hear about what you guys think and whether or not the Bible supports the flat earth. I'm more on the scientific side of it, but yeah.
Right? No, gotcha. And then we have Brett, the last generation, with us. And he actually does not believe. He believes spherical.
Correct.
Correct.
Yep. How you
So
guys doing?
awesome. So the panelists is kind of split. It sort of leans towards the flat earth because there's two of us, Daniel and I. But tonight's discussion should be fun and edifying for all interested in the topic. But before we really get started into this, I do want to say that this is a non-essential. This is something that is fun to talk about and should be talked about. At certain times, maybe not, but for the most part, it shouldn't be an issue that's strayed away from, but it should never cause discord or strife. If anybody on either side of the aisle is talking about it with somebody and the opposing side is getting under their skin, their blood's boiling. My suggestion would be to, find something else you guys can fellowship and that you agree about, or something that doesn't cause so much strife, because this subject has gotten in the middle of a lot of fellowships, and has been a sore subject and a bad taste in many people's mouths because people on both sides just gets their heels dug in and just get so angry about it. While it's fun to talk about, I admonish all the brethren to never let this topic or any non-essential, always give liberty to your brethren on non-essentials. But a topic like this, it's always best to think ahead and try to be as big as you can, and just love them as brethren and try to change the topic. That's just my suggestion. But so that is a little introduction. I do believe from just my short conversations with Max and Brett that they do agree with the essentials. So this is a panel of brethren talking it out, just having fun with it and seeing how we can sharpen swords and really just explain why we see things the way that we see them. So with that, I will really the one by himself and it'll give you a chance to say hello to everybody, Brett, and maybe just give a short little thing on why because I'm pretty sure you've looked into it some, but maybe why you reject the flat Earth at the same time why you think the spherical Earth would be correct.
Well, there's a lot of reasons why I believe it's round, sphere. But the main one I would pull out, just even leaving the Bible out of it for a second, is just the fact that all astronomy programs are based on a globe. That's the core mathematics of it. So we got these models that you can look forward and backwards in time, thousands of years, to see where the stars are going to be lined up, all the eclipses, You can see, like, in 10 years, we're going to have a lunar eclipse on this day. 10 years later, it's exactly where the model said it would be. That model, those astronomy programs, would not work with a flat Earth. The southern constellations, they have a problem with putting those in. Bottom line is, if they could show me a model that worked, then it would be viable, but it doesn't. Astronomy programs are based on a spherical object, and that's how they run all their math. So without saying any more, that's basically the first thing I would say. They have a model that works.
All right. I should go ahead and take off the thumbnail. With the model that works, have you looked into the flat Earth theory, the cosmology?
Yes.
Because with the spherical, it still works. It works with the flat Earth as well. There are no issues between what we see and what we or what we what you're explaining, what we can predict. We can predict the same thing. Yeah, go ahead.
Before we get into that, can we just talk about how we came to flat Earth, or what we think about flat Earth, before we start talking about going into detail about some of this?
Right. That is a good idea. But yeah, go. So actually, Max, with that suggestion, why don't you tell us where you are so we can
Sure.
figure out in the middle.
I was helping out Ken Hovind while he was in prison because they were trying to lock him up for another 10 years on some really stupid stuff. And, I'm not a Ken Hovind supporter any longer, but, during the time that was going on, flat Earth was a huge deal. That was 2-3 years ago, I think. And that was always a question that was coming up. He would answer questions from his prison phone and talk about flat Earth, I'm like, what are these people smoking crack or what? That was my opinion of it. And, eventually I'm kind of like, okay, well, I'll listen to some of these people talk and see what they have to say about it. And yeah, they make some very, very valid points. But as Brett was saying, you got this whole problem with the southern constellations and astronomy. And I'm somewhat of an amateur astronomer myself. And it's like, the North Pole, the North Star, everything spins around it. And then on the south, in like Australia, everything spins around the Southern Cross. How does that work on a flat Earth? So that's where I'm coming from. I did put a lot of research and a lot of study into doing it. And, by all means, a lot of people think I'm a flat earther because I bring up scientific, absolutely objectable scientific proof that it looks like the Earth is flat. But when you go into that realm, you have to throw out so much other stuff that it's really hard to make that jump. And we'll go off to the next person.
Right. Oh, Daniel, are you?
Yeah. For me, I was the typical response. I heard Mathias talk about it, and the first thing I thought was, man, this guy's retarded. And that shows a lot of my own pride and arrogance, and so I thought, man, this should be so easy to disprove. And so I set out to do that. And so now I couldn't do it, even scientifically. You watch some of those debunk videos and stuff, and, pretty quickly I was able to debunk some of the proofs that they had. And I was like, man, this isn't as easy as I thought it would be. And then ultimately, it brought me back to the Bible and what it said. So I kind of revisited, Genesis and some of the other passages. And ultimately what, kind of changed my mind was the scriptures. And, it's one of those things that I still don't know for sure. Not like I know Christ, that's That's a for sure thing. But, I think some of these things like this, God makes it such that we can't know 100%. So I've found in my research that you could pretty much have two plausible explanations on both models for just about anything. And so it always brought me back to the Bible. So that's where I stand on it. It's not a doctrinal or salvation issue. It's not an essential, as Matthias said, but it's just interesting. And, I, even as a child, growing up here in the panhandle of Florida, I remember crossing some of the bridges and looking out and thinking, I wonder how far, the water goes before I should see a curve, because I could never see one. And looking back on it, it's interesting to even think that I was even thinking of that. But I would always brush it off and say, well, everybody knows the earth is round. That's stupid, And so that's just kind of the way I was until, I heard Matthias talking about it. And, so every flat earther that I know of has been a globe believer at once, so, for whatever reason they come to the flat earth. I mean, that's, like I said, it doesn't really matter. My biggest contention is the way that people on both sides just automatically revert to, just like I did, making fun of people, calling people names. It's like, if that's what you have to resort to, then you've already lost the argument on either side. So, I don't get into that kind of stuff, but it is an interesting topic nonetheless.
Yeah, and I've always thought it was fun, but it seems ever since I've started diving into it, it seems like there's a lot of anger if you disagree, and that's not fun, because whether I believe flat or round, it's not a big issue to me. But apparently there's a lot that say it is. So that's what made me dive into a little bit more, thinking, okay, what's going on here?
Well, if somebody's trying to say that it is part of the gospel, then it kind of shows that they don't understand the gospel. It
Right.
almost sounds like it's those people, oh, if you don't see the Mandela effect, then you're just not part of Christ. It's like, no, that's not true. Just because I do believe the flat earth is real doesn't mean that it's an essential of the faith, or that it should even determine fellowship.
Well,
The
what is your so go over how you got into flat earth then.
right, that's what I was about to say.
Okay.
For me, I became a geocentrist first by reading Joshua.
Can I say something funny?
Please.
Do you know who Rob Skiba is?
I do.
Yeah, he subbed to my channel a few years ago, and then he got into flat earth, and he said that geocentrist is the halfway house for flat earth people.
It is.
That's exactly what I said whenever people say they're geocentrists. I said, that's just one more step to flat earth, right? Just messing with them.
Right. And so when I started searching it out, I was like, I remember I used to tell people, now I don't really believe this, but look at the math here and look at what God says here. And there was quite a while that I was doing that because I didn't want to believe it. In fact, I thought it was a ploy to make the geocentric model look silly. I had everything figured out on the geocentric model, even how the sun did its little corkscrew to give the seasons. But when I realized that the dome theory fit all my wonders about Scripture, how did the flood get bigger on a ball? And then that was one of the questions that I always had. Another one was, how is every eye going to see him? I used to think that God was just going to flatten the globe or somehow supernaturally just be coming from, like all 360 degrees and every different direction, because he's omnipresent.
It's because everyone has direct TV and he's going to be on CNN.
Well, I remember watching a video where they said, now we have satellite TV so that every eye can see him. It's like, you think God really needs satellite TV for the people who pierced him to be able to see him? But when I realized that this dome, um, it made perfect sense on when every eye, when he rolls the sky back as a scroll. So it fit in a lot of things. And then, like I said the other night, either on your channel or on this one, when I was reading through the Bible, my next time go through, every single time that it said face of the earth and ends of the earth, the Lord said in my spirit to meditate on those words that day. And it's like, that's all I had to meditate on. And it's like, man, okay, so I was trying to put spiritual context to it, but I couldn't really get past the physical over or what underlying of what it meant. So I really looked into it, and I mean, the deception, I think I understand the deception. I think I understand why. I think I understand how. I think I understand how easy. I think I understand exactly who. And even down to how it's being released systematically. And who is jumping on the bandwagon and where it's getting pushed, especially in the Christian, I'm talking loosely, in the Christian arenas. You've got the Hebrew rooters and the Seventh-day Adventist, and one other.
The sacred name.
Well, that's the Hebrew rooters.
Okay.
But yeah. The Messianic. Well, they're also really close to Hebrew rooters. Messianic and Hebrew rooters are very, very similar. But they're all jumping on board. And then, so that's who you have representing Christ in these arenas. And the majority of people are going to the New Age aliens. I mean, they literally think that we're a culture, a petri dish that that the aliens seeded us here, and that when we get to a certain point, they will open up more domes for us. It's like a new age Christ consciousness. We all have to come together in the God spirit. It's the Oprah Winfrey religion that has really grabbed on to this. And so I actually even think it's Satan who is disclosing it. I think it's Satan who hid it 500 years ago so that he could use it in his deception here in this last generation. But sorry, go ahead, Brett.
Oh, I was just listening.
Oh, I thought you were saying so. Maybe that was somebody else.
No, I was going to say, I really liked
Max, go ahead.
Alien. It was a good movie.
Which one?
That fantasy alien one that has Sigourney Weaver.
Oh,
and then,
right.
And then all of the evolutionists say, we have no idea how life started, and we realize that it's a law against our own science that life can come from non-life, but we're going to teach that to your children. But there's this movie called Alien out there. that could be the way that it happened. Could be.
Right.
You never know.
Richard Dawkins said he's open to the concept of aliens, just not God.
Exactly. I have that video on my channel with Richard Dawkins saying, well, I don't know what happened, but I guess aliens could have done it. And it's like, really? You call yourself scientists? Really?
Right. Exactly. I think they've been setting up through disclosure which is the act of, getting out information, little by little to kind of condition, program, and even brainwash a society. I think it even started with that radio program, World War. What was it when the radio? You guys
Orson
remember?
Welles, War of the Worlds.
War of the Worlds. Yeah, exactly. So I think they've been working, figuring out where they are, and then coming up with the technology. What they're able to do now is just unbelievable. The projection stuff.
Okay, well, I'm just going to say right there, because we're going to go back into flat Earth. Yes, everything on that space station they're doing is crap. 100%. It's all CGI, and you can tell it. And
Right.
people that think, well, I saw it on television, or I saw it on the news, or I saw it on whatever, man, you can make people believe anything. It's Photoshop, CGI, garbage.
Yeah.
Right, exactly. But it pushes, like when you have the heliocentric model, when you have what they're teaching in schools, even though I think they know it's a lie. What it does is it opens up somebody's thinking, hey, if it's that vast, that enormous, how can we be so prideful into thinking that we're the only creatures? And especially when it's been so long, that they could be millions of years advanced from us. It's
And
just
I can speak to that a little bit. I was lucky enough to go to a school that actually had to teach all of the different views, including, I don't think it was flat Earth, but the old Jewish thing where they have like a ball. It's like a ball surrounding the Earth that has the stars in it that spins. I don't know what they call that model, but I had
That's the
to
flat
learn.
Earth model.
Yeah, well, pretty much a snow globe, if you want to go with Rob Skiba stuff. Now I just lost my train of thought, so I'll pause until I remember it, and then I'll be right back.
I hate when that happens. But you were talking about you're going to a school where you had to learn all of the different types of
I think I
religion.
was going into heliocentricity. That's where I was going with it. And yes, I had to learn God did it or evolution did it and the different shapes of the earth or what it could be. And that was like in junior high school or something. So I guess I went to a good school because most people don't ever hear any of that stuff. But what I learned about heliocentricity was that nobody uses it. NASA is geocentric. Everybody who does anything in space, who does it for their job, is geocentric.
Yeah, most people don't know that.
And heliocentricity, there is no difference between, and I'll just describe the terms here in the scientific terminology. Heliocentricity means that the Earth revolves around the sun. Geocentricity means that everything revolves around the Earth. That's what it means. But according to relativity, it makes no difference. It doesn't matter. And it's a lot easier to calculate things revolving around the Earth than it is to calculate revolving around the sun and everything else. So everyone uses geocentricity. So yeah, that's where I go. Geocentric.
Right. That most people don't know. Brett, what were you about to say?
Well, nothing. I was listening to Max.
Oh, I got okay. Hey, yeah, I don't mean to. I meant to. Should have said this off air. If you'll mute yourself when you want to say something, unmute yourself. There you go. Because it's like a flag. You can see when people are muted and not. Daniel, go ahead.
Yeah, one thing I wanted to mention, Brett had mentioned the different models, how they calculate things and eclipses and all. Well, all the ancient civilizations who were, masters at cosmology, like the Chinese and the even the Middle Eastern and all the Egyptians, all those societies, they were able to do the same predictions. The Mayans, with eclipses and different things, but they were all using the flat Earth model because they all believed it was flat as well. So, like Mathias said, a lot of those things they work on both models. It's just some of the some of the math might be a little bit different. So even the distance of the sun, everybody brings out the Eratosthenes experiment, but like I said, in all my research, there's really two plausible explanations for both models. So it's there's some things that you can't necessarily consider to be a proof per se. So anyway, I just want to bring that point up about other ancient civilizations that worked off the flat Earth model, as well as the the instrument, the astrolabe. How the sailors navigated the oceans, and that was based upon flat Earth cosmology.
Right, and it hasn't changed, and it was very accurate.
So now we can get into like proofs of what actually proved it for you.
Well, right. I still want to get into, or I still want to talk about the spiritual aspect of it and how heliocentricity is necessary for evolution to come into play.
Oh yeah, we have to be a spinning ball going 1,000 miles an hour spinning, 60,000 miles an hour going through the universe, and 150,000 miles an hour with the sun going through the galaxy. Yep,
exactly.
I don't feel like I'm moving. I'm not dizzy.
Well,
you're too slow on your numbers, Max. You're too slow.
And with geocentricity, it does fall into the same camp with flat Earth here. How if whether it's a ball or flat, if everything is going around the Earth, the center of God's creation, then you have no Big Bang theory, you have no evolution, you have no other option, and especially you have no backstory for any great deception. So
the greatest part about that is that science actually proved it themselves. If you ever heard of a thing called the axis of evil, they actually proved that the Earth is in the center of the universe by sending up microwave antennas and stuff like that into space. And yeah, the Earth is in the center of the universe, and they couldn't stand it so much that they sent up 2 more satellites. And I did a whole video on that, and everyone's mad at me about that, but that was a couple of years ago. And yeah, we are in the center of the universe. And the biggest problem that people have with the Earth being in the center is because if they believe that the sun is 90 million miles away and the stars are trillions and trillions of miles away and everything is spinning around us, then you should be able to tell there. You'd have like a distortion with the light and stuff like that. Well, what if they're not that far away? That's my thing. I mean, science has already proven it, and they're just mad.
Right. Well, one question I always had is, by their own numbers, if they claim the universe is 16 billion years old, then how in the world can I see things trillions of light years away? I mean, their numbers don't even match up on that. They contradict themselves.
And yes, that's where I come into, and that's where I like flat Earth and appreciate it, because it's actually objective science that I can do myself. It's not relying on somebody else to tell me what is going on out there. And you have renowned physicists and mathematicians out there saying that cosmology is so far off the rails that they don't even consider it a science. It's just people making up stuff, and they put it in their textbooks and they teach it to your kids.
Right. They have to have a bunch of assumptions to start with that they base all of their information off of the assumptions.
Yeah, it's all mathematics, man. It's all math. Just do the math. It'll work out fine.
Right. Well, and the thing about having God a lot closer, this is one of the things that brought me into, like Daniel said, this isn't gospel truth, but I'm pretty convinced that the Earth is the shape that the ancient Hebrews depicted it as. And one of the things that helps solidify it is when I came to like, wait, so if this is true, because it's a hard pill to swallow, But when it's like you're like, give it a chance and look up and realize that the stars are much, much closer and a lot smaller because they're all going to fall to the earth, as Revelation says. And not too much past those stars, there's God Himself looking down on us right there. I don't have to think of billions of light years away to get out of this solar system and out of this galaxy and out of this universe.
And that's the whole
in
thing
order to
that
get to.
it actually goes against the Bible with some of that is, well, if God created everything in 6 days and the stars are trillions of light years away, how does the light get here in all that time? And it's like, well, you're assuming that some guy told you those stars are trillions of light years away. And you're automatically questioning God right there.
Well, for that, I would say when God created with all His awesome power, He demonstrated it even more by creating a star billions of light years away and created that light already in transit. When people say, oh, the earth is billions of years old, okay, that might be true. But when God created earth, He created it with age. He created Adam and Eve with age. So He didn't put a seed in the ground, wait for the tree to grow. He created everything with age. So to say something is billions of years old, that doesn't bother me because I look as, yeah, God created it with the appearance of age.
So no baby rocks, Brett.
I have to do my studies, but I don't think so.
And a person like me, when I went to geocentricity as pretty much my core thing, I have seen nothing that says that the speed of light isn't instant. So it doesn't matter how far the stars are. The light is instant. And you can slow light down, but as far as I know, it looks like it's instant.
Yeah,
Well,
and that too, to say that you're trying to put God's power in a box by thinking that way, because it's even more astounding when you think that it doesn't matter how far it is. He creates light in transit. He's not going to put something down there close because He knows the light would take too long.
No, I hear you, Brett, and I don't mean this in disrespect, but it's like mental gymnastics. It's a good one. It's very thought out. It makes a lot of sense. It is majestic. I'm with you, but a couple things is that the stars being so close, like if they were billions of light years away, then they'd have to be as big as the sun is, or bigger, for us to be able to see it. And then also, how long is it gonna like if God created it with their light coming this way, every single star is gonna fall and hit this earth, the Bible says. And so if they're all billions of light years away, and there's really more than what you can see with the naked eye, which that's a huge lie, but let's just go with the 3,000 plus stars we can see with the naked eye. I think that's all there is. But if they are going to fall to the earth, is it going to take a billion years for them to get here? Or did God create them in transit on the way here, and they're going to get here right when Revelation says it will happen?
Do you know the scripture you're getting that from? So I can just peek at it real quick. It's
stars fall from heaven.
Yeah, Revelation.
You got to remember
that. Who's talking? Daniel, we can't hear you too well. Hold on, let me mute.
Yeah, just remember that, like Canis Majoris, just one of those stars is supposedly 15 quadrillion times the size of the Earth. And so that the only way to explain that verse in Revelation in that model is to say that it's figurative and they're not really going to fall to the earth, because it would just one would completely wipe out.
Hey, I could hear you that time. but it was very, very, very soft. So either you were muffled with your finger over the phone, or you might want to jump out and come back in real quick. But yeah, Revelation 6:13.
Yeah, I see it, and it doesn't say all. It just
Well,
says, "And the stars of heaven fell onto earth."
yeah, I'm sorry. I consider stars of heaven, all of them. So
Then you
yeah.
have that whole thing of whether or not they're angels or not.
Well, and I do think they are angels actually, and that was the next thing.
I kind of think that too.
That I believe that they are walking around in a circuit up there, and they're obeying God just as what He told them to do, just as what the Bible says they are.
I think it's
So-
both. I think it's both. Because there's layers in His prophetic word that yes, it's going to be angels, but also you look, there is going to be fire and destruction coming from heaven too. So I think it would be both.
Oh well, no, that's Revelation 6:13 isn't the fire coming down from heaven. The fire coming down from heaven is when Peter talked about the earth burning with a fervent heat, and that's after the 1,000-year reign. So the stars falling to the earth is during the tribulation, and then it's after the 1,000 years. So there's a long time between um, when this earth gets burned up on all the elements.
No, I'm not saying it's going to be totally burned, but no, I'll show you. While
Oh,
we're
okay.
talking here, I'll look up a few scriptures that meteors will fall to earth.
I got you. Okay. I thought you were talking about the very, very end. Okay, I got you.
Okay, yeah. I'll look here real fast while you guys talk.
Yeah, I don't know any meteor verses. So please, yeah, let me know. Daniel, go ahead.
Yeah, I don't know if you could hear me the first time, but I was just saying that just one of those stars, supposedly Canis Majoris, is 15 quadrillion times the size of the Earth, according to science. So those verses about the stars falling from heaven, you would have to interpret those to only be figurative and not literal, because according to that model, it's impossible.
If you believe what science tells you. And I am one of those people now that anytime that some science guy says something, I'm going to say no, just because they're so wrong on so many points.
Right. I hate to say it, but it is kind of funny that every time I like looking at NASA's Facebook posts sometimes, because they get trolled so bad now. It's like they're trying so hard to be relevant and like say, hey, look, we're really making discoveries, and they just get trolled so bad. It's hilarious.
Well, yeah, and they got their whole space station underneath a pool or something, and they have their camera crew and all that stuff, and they're doing CGI everywhere, and it's like, come on, man.
Well, the NASA helps solidify in the young kids' hearts space travel. Space.
Well, when did you learn that the Earth was a ball? When you're about 5 or 6 years old, right?
Right.
In kindergarten.
Not by anything we could see, but because of the globe that they had in our classrooms.
Well, because they show you. I remember I saw the Challenger explode actually on television in like 6th grade, I think, something like that. And yeah, they're all big on showing you propaganda, and it's all just garbage.
Dude, they made us all watch it. That's why.
Yeah, did you watch it too?
It was during school. They made it during school, just like the inauguration of Clinton.
Yep.
They made everybody watch these things. It was just like the moon landing in the first place. It worked so well back then. I mean, this magic box, if it comes out of that, then it's real to these people. And so, especially young, impressionable minds in school, it was literally like, I'm sure everybody in our age group, within, I would say, I think it was even high school kids, but I was young. I was in like 4th grade, but they made us all watch it, and it was tragic. It was like, wait, what just happened? Everyone doesn't know, and then they come on. My wife actually was in South Florida at the time. They got to go outside and literally watch it. It wasn't even on TV. They the whole school, every school in her area went outside and watched it. They wanted kids to see that tragedy.
Yeah, and I don't understand. It was like almost a planned thing. Now that I look back at it, because like I'd never seen a space shuttle launch before, and I didn't really care because I'm a little kid.
Well, apparently they're still alive, but we'll leave.
Yeah, I
well,
saw
I
that
don't-
too with the Facebook. They're all on their Facebook accounts and stuff. Yeah, I saw that too.
I mean, if they aren't alive, they've got some twin doubles that
Look exactly like they do and are the exact same age.
right. So, but the main reason, like, okay, and now that there's more viewers, we talked about this at the beginning. This is not an essential. This is not something that is something that should really be important to somebody. Now, it is important because what's God's creation? That's the outside witness. Everybody has two witnesses: outside creation, inwardly conscience. So we're talking about God's creation, and that is important. But when it comes to uh, discord and strife among brethren, uh, getting along and showing love for one another, that's much more important than the shape of the earth. But does your view of the shape of the earth affect how you're going to live and how you're going to preach the gospel, and what effect you have with others?
I think it's
I
a
would
really
say absolutely not.
fun topic.
Well,
And
right.
and that's really how it is. And it does tie back a little bit to the Bible, and it ties to other things, but it's like it makes you think, and that's important. Whether or not what your opinion is, whether or not you think it's round, or whether or not you think it's a disc, or whether or not you think you live in a snow globe, it's important to think. Excuse me. It's important to think about these things and realize where you're getting your information from, and whether or not you should trust that information, and make up your own mind. And that's why, I like these sort of discussions, because it's not really heavy doctrine. It's just kind of having fun, and we got to run our mouths a little bit, but it does make people think, because I thought a lot about it, and for like 2 years I poo-pooed it. I'm like, this is ridiculous. But there are scientific facts which I would like to get into here eventually, with the science that led you guys to believe in flat earth, and I'll bring up some of my science, and we can talk a little bit about that, about things that actually sort of prove a flat earth. I mean, not that I'm not all the way there, but yeah, I've looked into it quite a bit.
And I posted this as you were saying it, because the scripture went right along with what you were saying. It doesn't matter what you believe, but I admonish, and I'm sure everybody on the panel admonishes every of the viewers, don't answer a matter before you hear it. Because no matter what it is, it'll be a shame and folly unto you, according to our Lord. So at least hear matters out, and then make a conscious, intelligent, non-ignorant decision. So Daniel, what you got?
Yeah, that kind of goes back to what I was going to clear up too, as far as how that I came to it. Besides, number one, making fun of you and just saying it's retarded. What I heard some chatter online about it, and what caught my attention was they were making fun of flat earthers for being Bible literalists, and it kind of set me back. Like, wait a minute, I'm a Bible literalist. I believe that God made the earth in 6 days. So I said, I'm going to look at this without trying to just say that it's stupid, and just like that verse says, and so I'm going to have an open mind and actually look at the scriptures and really hear this thing out. So that's what brought me to it. Number one, here, just myself thinking, why did I react to him that way after I started looking into it? And so and you can verify it. I came and apologized to you for making fun of you, but it was the thought of, hey, these people, they just believe the Bible. I thought, well, yeah, I do. So maybe there's something to this. So that's what caused me to look into it.
Yeah, I don't mind being called a Bible literalist.
Are we all Bible literalists?
Yeah, I think we all attested. I mean, Daniel wasn't here, but I know that he does that to a 6,000 year young Earth, and you've got to believe that God meant 24 hours a day in
Well,
order
if
to
he
come to
created
some
if he
conclusion.
created the days, I don't know how else he would do that. I mean, he created what a day was for people. So yeah,
Exactly.
Well,
Exactly.
with the
Okay.
Lord is 1,000 years. That's what they always.
I think we should go into proving flat Earth right now.
All right. Sounds like fun.
Yeah, I think it'd be a fun time.
What's one of the best proofs that's out there? I think one of the easiest things to grasp is to understand that you've been lied to about the moon reflecting light, and that the moon actually gives off its own light, just as the Bible says it does. And that it's easy to tell, man, if we would have had this conversation literally 7, 8, 9 days ago, those 3 days, we had a
Mathias,
moon.
did you know that the moon actually gives off a colder light?
Yes, actually, I did. You can measure
Cool.
it with the temperature. It's the opposite of sunlight. It's warmer in the shade of moonlight than it is it's cooler in the light, where in sun it's the exact opposite. And it's actually different types of light. So I don't know much about light, but there's different waves of it. And if every time you shine a light off of a mirror and reflect, you get the same wave. It never changes the type of light. And you can literally get it from the moon and the sun, two different types of light. And so that should prove to people that it's not a reflection. But when you look in the night, in the day's sky, in the afternoon, and you see half moon, that's, and especially when you see the sky or the sun in the same sky, what's supposedly making that half moon is the shadow from the earth. The earth is causing that effect.
And that is a fantastic point that nobody has ever been able to debunk me on, or anybody else, is that you have the moon and the sun in the sky, but apparently the earth shadow is what's causing the crescent moon. But the sun is right there. It's not behind me. It's right there.
Right.
With eclipses, both sun and moon have been above the horizon.
All right, you're really quiet again. Whatever you did.
I might have you on.
No. There you go. You're on now. Good.
Okay. It's the same effect in eclipses, when you can have the sun and the moon above the horizon in the eclipse. That should not be possible.
So we all agree that we were being lied to.
Right.
I'm gonna bring up something
real quick. I'm just looking at Jordan says that is not support for a flat earth. That is support for the moon producing its own light.
Yeah.
Which is a great point, Jordan.
Well, I'm gonna do a flat earth thing right now. Objectable, testable proof. You should not be able to see more than 15 to 20 miles out at sea. You should not be able to. 6 feet tall. If you have a zoom camera lens, you can go for 40 to 60 miles, which should be impossible. And there's plenty of videos on the internet about that, where I'm not, like I said, I'm not all in with the flat earth thing, but I'm obviously being lied to when for every mile you have 8 inches of drop squared and you can see out 40 miles. It's the same thing as saying you can see around a corner, because that's what the ball earth is. You'd be looking around a corner, and cameras and telescopes aren't magic. You're just looking at something. So that was the big one for me, is that you can actually see, I think you can see Chicago across Lake Michigan with a
But
good enough telescope.
they've got some debunk videos on that try to debunk that, and they say refraction and all these different conditions make it, be able to do work. So, like I said, they've got explanations.
Well, yeah, they have explanations, but none of that's been proven. They say it was. They said it was a not a hologram, but a
mirage.
Mirage, yes, figment of your imagination. That really didn't happen. Pay no attention to the man behind the curtain.
Right. Well, one of the things too, like you just mentioned, that 8 inches per mile squared. Well, we live down here on the Gulf of Mexico, and of course we can see long distances. But what's always amazed me is you can look straight out in those distances, but if we were on a sphere, it wouldn't matter. You would find curvature every direction. So not only would you see curvature off in the distance straight, you should see the curve left to right as well, and it's non-existent.
Yeah, and people that say that they see the curve when they go up in a jet plane, they have fisheye lenses on the glass in the jet plane. I always kind of wondered why they did that, but it's just so you can have a better view. But yeah, there ain't no curve. There ain't no curve there.
Right. I have pilot friends, that are flat earthers as well.
Right. Yeah.
I honestly, I'm going to say that I think every pilot should be a flat earther, because if I was a pilot, I'd be wondering how my gyroscope works if the earth was a ball.
Right. Especially since you're not correcting for the curvature on yourself, and you know that, and you're traveling at several miles per minute. So it's kind of easy to tell if you are. It's not like you're in a car and you got to wait 8 miles. Driving at 60 miles an hour, doing 500 miles an hour plus, you would have to be adjusting for curvature. But I do want to address somebody in the chat real quick. I believe Tina, because she's absolutely correct, saying that she doesn't care about the shape of the earth, that it could be a triangle, and it's not going to help people come to Christ. And I get that perspective, and I get that point. And this really should never be argued. But really, there's no true saints out there helping all the flat earthers. We don't have to teach them flat earth in order to give them the gospel. They already believe the flat earth. But there's no saints in the arena. There's only false converts. I have to give a shout out to the Facebook group Flat Out Grace. That's the only Facebook group that is, talks about the flat earth and truly promotes the gospel of grace. So it's not important to in that aspect, and it should never be brought up in a soul winning effort, except for, I will tell you that there has been a time where the Spirit has laid on the Holy Spirit has laid on my spirit to share with a complete atheist, actually twice. One of the times the person didn't get saved. The other time the person, well, I don't know if the other person did, but I know that they left humbly seeking God, thinking, because they had a lot of questions about science and why that stuff wasn't adding up. And so when I showed them that this is what God said, and showed him some old experiments that had been done in the early 1900s and stuff like that. Because of sharing it with him, it did help him come to the, well, possibly. He still had to humble himself, seek God. I don't know. I never got his phone number. It was in a public place. But it's not something that you use often, but if you can pull it out as a tool if need be, but you shouldn't make yourself believe it just because of that. Max, what were you going to say?
I was just saying, isn't that funny how that goes, where the atheists are all, I don't know if you call it trumped up or whatever, but they're pretty much putting their backing on science. And then when they realize that some of the science they're following is complete garbage, they're lost. And they're like, where do I go now? Where am I going to go? And that's been my experience on my channel, because I mainly started with a scientific thing. And I'd have debates with guys with 4 degrees. And those are the most hardcore people because they paid a lot of good money to be lied to. They paid a lot of money. And the people that didn't really pay the money, but they're still kind of sort of atheists or whatever, they're a little bit more open to ideas and things that make sense to them, and logic, and natural science, things you can do yourself. I mean, you take a camera or a zoom lens or something like that, you can tell that what they're telling you about the curvature of the earth is a lie. It's an absolute lie.
Well, I've got another proof if you guys got a second.
Shoot.
All right. For me, after I was convinced from the Bible that, of my position, I did start looking at some of the science. And there are some things that Brett mentioned earlier, like the stars, the opposite spin in the southern hemisphere and things like that, it causes you to think. But for me, the one that the best scientific evidence for me was the 24-hour Arctic sun. Okay. And if you picture yourself on a merry-go-round, okay, and that merry-go-round being the slice through the globe of the Arctic Circle, where, during that time of year where the sun is closer, you never see the sun go below the horizon. Okay. So it would be equivalent to a merry-go-round, and you look at a street light way down at the other end of the park. Okay. If the sun is 93 miles away. And what we should see is if we were at the position on that plane, on that slice of the Arctic Circle, and as the Earth is supposedly rotating from the 3 o'clock position to the 12 o'clock position, then to the 9 o'clock position, 6 o'clock, and then back to the 3 o'clock, what we should see is the sun oscillating left to right across the sky, back and forth, if it is in fact 93 million miles away. But what we actually observe is the sun traveling 360 degrees around the view of the camera. So, that to me was, on the science side, a pretty good evidence and proof of the sun not being 93 million miles away. So, did that make sense as far as the explanation of that point?
It did to me because I had thought of it before. I hope it did to others. I guess the other two on the panel. Did that make sense? Because it really is kind of hard to describe. Because if you're on a, well, heck, I got
Well,
camera.
I'll just say that I think the sun is basically a spotlight and is, yeah, that's how it lights up the earth. And
Right.
I don't believe it's 93 million miles away. I don't believe that we're shooting through the galaxy and the stars and all that stuff. I don't believe in any of that.
Exactly. So that was my point. If, according to the heliocentric Earth being a sphere model, what we should see if we were at the Arctic Circle, is the sun oscillating back left to right and not traveling 360 degrees around the observer. And do you understand that point? Why? Like if
Right
like I
here.
said,
Let me see if I can.
Yeah, see, you guys know all about that. We don't.
Right. Well, I mean, it's a great point because let's see, if the here, you're looking here. So I don't know if you guys can see because it looks like
Yeah, we can see it.
you can see the two circles there.
Yep.
Okay, it's just white. Okay, so if this circle is the light that you're looking at, and you're on the merry-go-round here, and we're spinning, then when you're here, then the light will be on your right side, comes over here, and then it'll be over here. It'll be on your left side, and then you'll come over, and it'll switch sides on you. So it's just going like this, and when you're on the dark side, you don't see it at all. But that's not what we see. What we see is the sun going all the way around like this.
Right, but the point is that slice, that circle that you used at the bottom, that would be the Arctic Circle line through the globe where the sun never goes below the horizon. So you would just simply see the sun oscillate back left to right, back and forth, instead of when you have a camera at the Arctic Circle, the sun actually goes around you 360 degrees.
So what do you think the actual shape of the Earth is then? Do you think the flat Earth where you have the Arctic ring around a big pool of water with the continents in it? Or what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I don't really know the perfect map, but I would say the azimuthal map is similar to what it probably is. But I mean, I'm not a real big. I mean, I'm not a scientist. I don't know a bunch of math, smart. I'm not that kind of guy. This is just simply what I look out and see. That's more what I trust. Other than, I mean, I could do a whole bunch of numbers on a piece of paper to make something work, but that doesn't necessarily work in reality.
Come on.
in my
You're going to be a scientist, man. You're going to be a scientist someday. You write numbers down on a piece of paper. What I also want to talk about is, do you believe in space and whether or not there's a dome and where the stars are in the firmament and topics like that?
Real quick. Oh, let me see. I think where'd it go? I had one of my images up, but it's not working. To share it, I haven't learned my new
I
system.
do, Max. I do believe in the dome because of Job 37:18.
Yeah, you know what? I'm sort of there with you. I'm just not completely there. And I believe it's Job. It actually talks about the circle of the earth. It also talks about being a ball. And they use them in two different references. And yeah.
That's Isaiah. You're talking about Isaiah 40:22.
Yeah, okay, I messed up. It's Isaiah.
Yeah, Isaiah 22:18 mentions the ball. Now, one argument you could say for the other side is the passage in Job where it says, "He hangeth the earth upon nothing."
Yeah, and I'm a geocentrist, so yeah, I think the earth is on pillars and it can't be moved because the Bible tells me that.
Right. Jordan, I'll give you a link in just a few minutes. We'll open the discussion up. Jordan, actually, I got your email address, I think. But no, go ahead and email me at talkindoctrine@gmail.com. So it's right up there on top, Jordan. And I'll get you the link here in a little bit because I believe he's a heliocentric baller all the way.
Yep.
So it'll be fun.
Am I the odd man out just being a geocentrist?
Probably.
Oh
well,
man,
we're all.
someone's going to come over and break my legs now.
Right. I'm a geocentrist too. It's just I don't believe the corkscrew anymore. I believe that the sun is much closer, and it's just doing inward and outward spiral. Actually, the sun.
I'm guessing that you listened to Robert Sungenis then.
No, who's that?
Really?
Yeah, who's that?
Robert
Yeah,
Sungenis.
we don't know who these guys are.
Robert Sungenis is a Catholic who came out with a movie, and I don't know the name of it off the top of my head because my memory is terrible.
Are you
But-
referencing the principle?
Yes, I am. Thank you very much, man. Thank you very much. You saved me. Yes, the principle.
Okay, yeah, I know who you're talking about. I just didn't know it by name. And I need to correct. Jordan is actually, when he comes on, he'll be in your camp, so you won't be an odd man out. He's a geocentrist, not flat earther.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I forgot. Okay, now I remember. He used to be a flat earther, and then he's the only one who went back that I've ever met. So it's something about the stars, and then the closeness of the sun, I think it'll boil down to. But yeah, I'll throw you the link here in just a little bit, Jordan.
Yeah, and I'm just being quiet. I'm trying to hear everybody's side because I really do listen and pay attention and try to understand how you see it. So I'm not talking because I just want to listen. But
Right, no worries. Great. But yeah, and you can actually don't worry about asking questions and feel like you're not listening. Like if there's anything that pops in, like, okay, well, what about this? Please add it to the conversation. So, because you're not the only one who's thinking about that.
well, I mean, I can ask simple questions like, for one, how come there's no pictures of this ice wall?
Oh, there is. Funny.
Well, I've seen them. I've looked it up. I've searched high and low, and it's always just one block of ice. There is no no plane driving or flying real high above and just following it. There's nothing of that.
Well, there's
There
some
is a
interesting
there
things
is a
to do
video.
with that.
There is actually a video of a plane flying by it for a long. I don't know how long the video is. It was like 10 minutes, just straight ice.
Well, and there's a reference to people who have supposedly traveled around it for 60, 70,000 miles or something like that 500 years ago. And everyone's going to reference like Robert Byrd and the stuff that he said and things about that. The whole thing is, though, is that we just really don't know. We really don't know. I mean, but
You could be flying in a circle.
well, objective fact, though, is like if the Earth is 25,000 miles in circumference, and that would be a radius of 4,500 miles, 4,600, something like that. You should be able to see a curve, and none of that has ever been demonstrated. So we're being lied to about the size of the Earth. Period. That's just fact. The very.
Well,
I can share.
we can't be being lied to too much. I mean, I agree with what you're saying, but we do have daylight. So either, the sun, it can only be 25,000 miles in circumference. And that's why they have us.
If the sun is 90 million miles away.
No, even on the flat Earth model. Because what the sun will do is it's like a spotlight. And it will go around the Earth or go in its circuit above the Earth, and it makes its circle in 24 hours. And that's why they say the Earth spins at 1,000 miles an hour, because of
They have to make their math work out.
Correct. Right. Exactly. So that's why either the sun's moving faster than 1,000 miles an hour. But see, one of the things is the nursery rhyme about the tortoise and the hare.
Familiar?
That's actually a description of the sun and the moon. at the
Interesting.
beginning of the race, right there in summertime or in wintertime, the sun is going really fast because it's on the outside of the ring, and in the wintertime the sun moves faster because it's
So tell me this: do you believe in gravity then?
well, do you believe in density?
Yes, density and buoyancy. I've heard the argument.
So
Do you believe that gravity is holding the sun and the moon to the earth?
no.
What do you think is holding it there?
You know what? I don't even know what the sun is. This is just an opinion. I don't have a Bible verse for it, so I am not standing on it at all. It's just awesome to think about that the sun, especially when I believe God is right above this dome. The sun, I believe, is like um, a hole, a what's the going in between realms, you know, like from the first and second heaven down here straight into the third heaven, and that it's God's glory that's
Yeah.
literally coming through that hole as that hole moves around above the earth, and God's glory is what's giving life because everything needs the sun. But then also the only thing that, or there's nothing that if you leave in the sun that the sun doesn't destroy. So it has a lot of powers, or a lot of not powers, but characteristics.
So you basically don't believe in gravity.
Yeah, I don't believe in gravity.
There you go.
I would say this. I mean, we talk about gravity. I'm getting feedback. Okay. And we call it gravity. Let's just say we don't know what it is, but it exists. Well, there's been tests done on humans. They put them in a sound box and they realized that people put off a sound. Everybody puts off different sounds. And so they tested this. They took a bunch of people who were always happy, and they would put them in a soundproof room and they would record the sound waves coming off of these people. Then they took a person who was clinically depressed. And of course, they had a lot of subjects that they would do this to, and they did it over and over. But they noticed that there was a difference in sounds that these people put off. They recorded the sounds and they cranked it up, and they shot it into a petri dish at some, I don't know, bacteria, I think is what they used. They probably used all sorts of different things. And the amazing thing happened. The people that were happy, the sound waves that they cranked up, they put it on this petri dish, the bacteria became vibrant and moving and fast, and it was like they were more alive. Then they took the sound of the depressed people and shot at the same samples, and those samples actually started dying. They started breaking apart. So it goes back to God when he created all things. His word, when he spoke things into existence, his word is literally holding everything together. Even today, his voice resonates today. And it was all about vibrations, the different waves and of sound waves. And it's just a testament to God's power, because even doctors will tell you, if you are depressed, you're going to create physical problems, ailments with yourself. You got someone who's depressed, they could create ulcers. They can literally, their body's breaking apart because of this depression. Well, when they're happy and they're filled with joy, they have a better life. Their body literally is more vibrant. So I just wanted to say that. So as far as the sun, what's holding it, what's holding the moon, we call it gravity. We try to make sense of it, but we know It's God's word resonating today that holds everything together. Because by their science and the way they think, you should be able to put your hand through your computer desk right now. They don't understand why it's a solid when they get down to the molecular level of everything, the atoms, what's holding it together? What if you look at an atom, you got the nucleus, the protons, electrons orbiting around. What's holding the atom and to the electrons and the neutrons? What's holding it there?
Well,
and they realized it's vibrations.
Well, and what's in between the electrons and neutrons and nucleus?
100% correct.
Nothing.
And that's
Vibrations, sound.
One of the main reasons that I study the Bible is because science does not know. They're like, oh, it's an atom. And we have all this protons, neutrons, electrons, and all this stuff floating around. We have no idea what holds it together. We're just going to say gravity. We're just going to make up our own thing. And yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about. And
well, you get the good ones who are actually seeking truth. They have realized it's vibrations.
It's pretty hardcore truth when you get down to that. I mean,
I think of Colossians where it says, "By Him all things consist."
Right. What Brett said was absolutely right. God is the glue that literally holds the molecular structure of everything together. But what is it that holds the sun and moon? Yeah, ultimately it is God. But what I don't think they are what they say they are.
So I'm thinking you're going to say it's a spinning snow globe or something.
Spinning snow globe? No. It's almost like a snow globe.
Well, so you're in the Rob Skiba camp.
Well, on this aspect, yeah.
Okay, so you think that the Earth is flat, and then there's a dome, and then the stars are placed in the dome, and the sun and moon ride around inside of it.
Correct, exactly, and the stars as well. So yeah, the snow globe. Real quick before you ask your question, I'm gonna and Daniel, I'll throw it to you real quick. I'm gonna add PillBox. I don't think we're connected on.
I'll be back in like 2 minutes. So.
Oh, okay, cool. PillBox. I'll go ahead and email me at talkindoctrine@gmail.com. I'll send it to Jordan and PillBox in just a minute. As this panel gets larger, I do want the chat room, in this channel, we unite on the essentials of being life, liberty, of being the way, the truth, and the life, and we give liberty on the things that are non-essential. So we can have a fun discussion, but as long as everybody is agreeing on the essentials, that Jesus is the only way, that He is God in the flesh, and that He gives you eternal life when you believe and rest in His name, that those are the essentials. And if we all believe and unite on that, we're going to live for eternity together. So, I think that there were people who getting a little heated in there, not saying nice things. I don't, it's going so fast tonight, I'm not really able to keep up with it, but I do want fellowship. I would like that. And I do believe that everybody here on this channel is people who love the Lord. Oh, and Allie, I don't care about subs. I just care about fellowshipping and coming together under liberty. If people get upset over the non-essentials and they just don't want to talk and fellowship around God's word anymore, so be it. I've been in enough places where, if you don't agree with certain people, that you get shunned or treated like your opinion is insufficient. And we're trying to build a place to where, no, as long as we unite on the essentials, you can believe whatever you want. Hey, I'll disagree with you and I'll want to talk to you about it, but you'll never hear a mean thing come out of my mouth when it's talking about non-essentials. And I think getting aggressive with one another is what hurts God. Like, it grieves him. And when we gather together in love around his word, that's what brings him joy. And it doesn't matter who's right or who's wrong in any situation. When we come together as brothers and sisters around his word and just wanting to get to know him more, he's pleased with both of us. And so as long as we do all things in charity, that's what the UL say, unity, liberty, charity. As long as we do things in charity, then the fellowship will be joyful, peaceful. We can bear the fruits of the Spirit as long as we don't stay in the flesh. So that's just an admonishment, I guess I should say, to brothers and sisters in the chat. I didn't mean to cut you off. Max, I'm about to add 2 more people.
Yeah, I just got back.
And perfect timing. And Daniel, I'll throw it to you because I saw you unmuting.
Yeah, I asked the question one time. I had an interesting answer. Okay, if gravity exists, then what makes some air molecules obey gravity at the edge of the quote-unquote vacuum of space, while the other air molecules disobey gravity and fly off into space? And the only answer that somebody gave me was density. I thought, isn't that interesting?
Well, what I think is interesting, and here's where I'll go into the flat earth and why, it has some merit, is that what they tell me is that space is a vacuum, and it's a more perfect vacuum than what we can actually create on Earth. But then we're also in an atmosphere, and all of this water is spinning around in a vacuum, flying through space. That doesn't make any sense. Wouldn't all the water get sucked off into the vacuum? I'm just asking.
Slung off by centrifugal force, but gravity is the magic that makes everything work.
The thing is, though, that gravity does exist. I mean, the reason that things have weight is because we call it gravity. Whether or not the moon is held together by the earth because of their mass and that sort of gravity and that theoretical stuff, I don't believe in. But the reason that things fall down, gravity.
But it can only be measured, when it comes to the universal scale of objects being pulled to one another sideways, only in that basically imaginary realm or the space realm.
Nobody can prove that stuff, and that's why I just don't believe it unless someone can show me a demonstrable model of how that works. I'm just not going to believe it.
It's just, it only works in the planetary scale, they say. I mean, that's the only way that they say it works.
Well, it works in grade school where you have like wires and stuff that hold all the planets and they spin it. I don't know what they call those things, but
all right, we got Jordan with us. Welcome, Jordan. I haven't gotten the link. Oh, there's PillBox. I got his email just now. So I'm sending it out to PillBox. But Jordan, welcome to the panel. Why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself? And I'm sure I saw you in the chat room, so you were nipping at the bit. So you got something you want to share? Go right ahead.
You guys can hear me all right?
A little too loud. Do you have a way to turn down your mic?
Yeah, let me see here.
How's it going, Jordan?
It's going good. I mean, I haven't used Hangouts much, so I'm not sure.
Yeah, I don't know how you turn down your mic. Yeah, just Maybe, yeah, talk sitting back. There you go. There you go. There you go. Because it just makes a crisp sound whenever you're talking. So yeah, if you talk back
So
further away,
how's this? Is this a little better?
that's perfect.
All right. Yeah, so it's been a good discussion so far. I'm Jordan. Nice to meet you guys. I'm glad you were talking to the chat that it should be a civil discussion.
Definitely.
There's there's a lot of things I wanted to point out, but I would say that from my past experience, looking into the flat Earth, and learning about different ideas about how the universe is, what the Bible has to say about it. The thing that I would really encourage people to focus on, because I am now a geocentrist. I believe the Earth is at the center of the universe and that it doesn't move. That includes spinning or moving in any fashion. However, I don't believe it's flat. And there's a number of reasons for that. But if there's anything that I wanted to contribute to this discussion is to pay attention that you don't have to lump everything together. When something is evidence for one thing, it doesn't automatically mean it's evidence for something else. And that's a lot of times how people portray it is, if we've been lied to about something, then automatically it means something else. Or for example, like was being put forth earlier, if there's evidence to show that the moon puts off its own light, well, that's separate from evidence of a flat Earth. So there's a lot of things like that where, people will use evidence for geocentrism to support a flat Earth when they're two separate things. And I think that's important to remember.
You do have a good point, and when you had made the point, I was trying to address it, and then the conversation got shifted over, and I never made it back to it. But yeah, my main thing was what were some of the easiest ways to explain to somebody that they can see for themselves that what they've been told they can easily see for themselves that they've been lied to. And the moon giving off its own light was one of them. Hey,
I
and I
agree,
know you're
yeah.
new to Hangouts. Are you on a PC?
Oh yeah, you want me to mute myself when I'm done talking?
There you go, and use it like a microphone, and we'll be able to call on you as you unmute it. So it makes out. So PillBox, welcome to the chat, to the panel. I mean, it's good to see you, brother. I haven't seen you in a long time.
What is going on, Mr. Talkin Doctrine? Yeah, man, it has been a minute. Boy, what a rush that we have gone through in the past year, because I know you are not a noob to it. I know you have seen a lot of the same things I have seen. So I'll just say this real quick to start off. First of all, thank you for letting me come on Talkin Doctrine. It's probably been a year since we've even been on the same panel. 1 John 4:1, beloved, do not believe every spirit, but test the spirits to see whether they are from God, for many false prophets have gone out into the world. And this Talkin Doctrine. When this part of the Bible is written, it says beloved. God isn't talking to the atheists. He's not talking to the scoffers. He's talking to the beloved. He's talking to who he's loved, his family. And that's the Christian America, I call it. The Christian America, the most deceived Christians talking in the history of mankind. One of the most deceived groups of people in the history of mankind is Western culture. And this whole space thing, this whole globular, ball earth ideology, the pseudo-intellectual life that we were all raised, to want to be smart and, and we thought that was great. We all grew up watching TV and thinking science, this, and we didn't know we were being lied to. And, most of us woke up to the fact that we didn't come from monkeys, right? We know they all teach that. The same people teach that. And there's some pieces that you have to put together here. Now, like you were saying, this is about Jesus Christ. There's only one way, one truth, and one life, and nobody gets to the Father but through him. Jesus Christ is everything. Here's what I'm getting at, Talkin Doctrine. The shape of the earth is not about the shape of the earth. The shape of the earth is about being able to trust the Bible, trust God's words. And when that 8-year-old baby comes up to you, that little kid says, Talkin Doctrine, What do you think the earth looks like? Is it a ball? You'll be able to, one of the rarest people right now out of, 7 billion supposed people talking doctrine, you have been given a gift that you can actually answer that child honestly with knowledge and a foundation with the Bible, and to say, here it is, young Billy or Sally, we are on a plane of existence. It's the earth, and it's so special it was made right after heaven. And it says that in the first book. And it's the only place that we have terrestrial life. And that's it, period, end of story. And that's the truth. And you can answer that with honesty. So the reason I'm saying this is because it kind of it scares me when somebody says, I don't care. Well, wait a minute. If you don't care about truth, that might be a sign of another problem. Because I'll tell you what, Talkin Doctrine, 3 years ago, when Rand Campbell and Rose Patton said to me the words flat earth, I said, wait a minute. If what you're saying is true, I need to know about it, because I don't want to be stupid. I don't want to, be wrong and think that if I made a mistake that big, I studied to be a pilot for 30 years. Wait a minute. And then it started dawning on me, wow, even all the flight simulators are flat. Then I looked at my own photography at 40,000 feet and said, oh, I thought I took a picture of the curve Talkin Doctrine and it was flat. And I thought I saw curve. Right then I knew it was a very big deal, because I knew it could literally take my senses away. It was if they told me that fire was wet and water was hot. And I believed it for 30 years. And it's a very big deal to me. And if it's not a big deal to you, that's okay. That means you also can't answer those questions when the 8-year-old Billy and Sally walks up to you and asks you about the shape of the earth. And it's not about the shape of the earth. That's much bigger. This was to test millions of people talking doctrine if they were able to accept God's word and admit they might be wrong. That's the first thing I did. And I used to work for the government. I was in the DOD talking, this. I was in the Army as a 19 kilo. I went to gunnery, and all that stuff doesn't mean anything. But I used to work for these people. So you can't fool. You already fooled me once or twice. I swore on a satanic oath to work for them. But I learned my lesson. Thank God I survived and got out with the knowledge, and I know exactly what they're about. And not everybody can talk in doctrine. Not everybody's going to be able to understand this stuff. They're still Christians. They're still going to go to heaven. My whole family was always deceived. I still hope to see my father in heaven. He had no idea. That's not going to matter. What matters is Jesus Christ. And somebody said that. They're absolutely right. I'm not saying you have to believe the earth is flat. I'm saying you have to honestly give people a chance when approached with this subject. And if you can't, just don't talk about it. Because I know from firsthand account, not second, not third, firsthand account, we are absolutely 100% on a flat stationary plane. And I will put my life on that. And I'm not expecting you to do that. That's just an answer that I will be able to give to people. And God has blessed me with that knowledge. Again, it's not for everybody. I'm sorry I took a little bit too much time on the mic talking doctrine. I'll let you guys speak now. Go ahead.
No, that's really cool, PillBox, and it's nice to meet you and have you too, Jordan. That's something that's come up in my own life with my own kids. And what I said, we homeschool them. So I said, man, what better thing could we do than to actually do experiments that can show them, but we tell them what the science view is, but we also teach them that that's in contrary to what Genesis says. And so, that's how I approach it with my own children.
And a lot
Right,
of
that's-
it's actually in contrary to what you can view with your physical own eyes.
Right. That's what we do with our children as well. It's the best thing to tell them both ways. Even with the geocentric model on the ball, let them know all the different things, and when they get of age, they can research it out and figure it out for themselves. But Jordan, yeah, what you got, buddy?
So I wanted to bring up a few very easy to understand experiments, if you want to call it. And a point I wanted to make is a lot of times when people are discussing the shape of the earth or the universe, you have stuff that's kind of conceptual, like we can logically think about something and work it out in our head. And then you have other stuff that requires basically a lot of study and knowledge. Like, for example, calculus. You can only discuss calculus if you know calculus. And like for my from my perspective, the way that I try to study these kind of issues, knowing that I am not a master mathematician, I did pre-calculus and I stopped at that, and that I'm not as well adept at some other people in these areas, I try to focus on really simple things that require very little scientific knowledge, because I think we can get tripped up when we try to make an argument with something we don't understand, because then somebody says, well, actually it's this way, and we can't really argue against it if we don't have that knowledge. So for example, a detective, a lot of times it's not about, what you do know, but sometimes about what's not possible. And that can give you some clear things. And the thing I would want to point out, I'm going to use my camera here, move it a little bit. So if I'll show my mouse pad here, I'm just going to get a piece of paper. So does everybody know what a sundial is? Yeah.
Yeah. Gotcha.
So a sundial, you have your sundial. It's basically just a pole or whatever shape they put it in. And then you have the sun, and you shine the sundial, and you get a shadow. And as the sun moves, the shadow moves. And so the point that I want to make is that, and this was one of the things, not the only thing, obviously, but this was one of the things that started moving me away from the flat earth, because it's so simple. And somebody brought up Robert Sungenis before, who made that documentary, The Principle. And that movie was very influential on me. But one thing that he brought up in an interview, why he didn't believe in the flat earth. Now, he's a Catholic, so, I don't agree with that, obviously. But he made a very good point when he talked about sundials, because on a globe earth, or whatever you want to call it, I don't really have any fond thoughts about the shape of the earth. But sundials, the way they work in reality, would be impossible on a flat earth. So whenever you have the sun going across the sky, it's just in relation, at least it's hard to talk about, because the normal model says, well, the earth is flying around the sun, right? I don't believe that. I believe the sun is going around the earth. So when the sun moves around the earth in the sky, it's just, it's the path it's taking, right? So on a flat earth, people say, well, the sun is moving around in a circle over the flat earth, right? And so the problem with that is that no matter where you are on the earth, the sun is always moving in an arc throughout the day. So no matter what position you're in, the sun is moving at an arc in the sky. However, the only way that it can move in a straight line in the sky throughout the day is if you have a spherical earth and the sun is moving around the equator or a point on the earth that it's lined up with. And the reason why this becomes obvious is because there's a certain times in the year where when the sun is going around a certain point, the shadow of a sundial does not curve. Normally, the way you tell what time it is by a sundial is because the curvature of the shadow will point to a time on the sundial. But like at the equinox, if you're at the equator, the sundial, the shadow moves in a straight line, and I'll show you. So if this is the sundial, I gotta adjust it. There we go.
Can I ask you a question real quick, Bible believer? I got to ask something real quick. If I showed you how this can easily work on a flat earth, because I actually built a 21-foot wide sundial in my backyard, and I've been doing experiments for 2.5 years being in this so-called movement, which is not a movement. I did some big experiments here. I built a 21-foot azimuthal equidistant projection and prove that with a close light source, it happens exactly how we see the sun move. And there's all kinds of other problems with it as well. The main problem is that what it does is you're not looking at the shape of the earth. We're trying to get away from the shape of the earth and say, because the sun does this, and even the people that, thousands of years ago, the Pythagorean theorem as well, they all admitted it still works with a close and very small light source, just to let you know.
And I see what you're saying, and if I finish my point, I respect what you're saying, but I'll disagree, and I'll tell you why. I agree that if you're talking about just a very close local area, that yes, if the sun is moving in a big circle, that yeah, it's going to seem like it's moving in a straight line. If you're talking about a really small area, I agree with that, but I'll tell you why that can't be the case. So I'll finish what I was doing. So if the sundial shadow is moving in a straight line like this, it implies, I mean, it's kind of hard to do on the video camera, but my point being is that normally there's a curve in the shadow of a sundial as the sun moves throughout the sky. And the only way that you would have a straight shadow on the sundial is basically if you had a spherical earth and it was moving around that plane on the earth. And the reason why I disagree with that it's just a local phenomenon, like, you're only seeing like a small part of the path the sun is making, is because there are measurable times of day around the world. So like where I am, daylight is 12 hours, right? And nighttime is 12 hours, right? And there's recorded times as when the sun goes up and when the sun goes down. And this is completely indisputable, right? Like there's no way they could hide when the sun goes up and when the sun goes down. And these times are recorded all over the earth. And my issue with the idea of like a spotlight sun over a flat earth is that it's unable to match a 12-hour day and a 12-hour night on different parts of the earth.
All right. Well, hey, Jordan, let me jump in real quick.
Go ahead.
Because, one of the things is you're not taking into account that, the 12-hour day and night is only a short time of the year. A lot of times it's 18 hours.
I'm aware.
It's
just an example.
It's even less. Right. But I actually made this. I wish I could open up Photoshop, but my computer has been acting up, so I'm not even going to try so we don't lose broadcast. But if you have a 24-hour clock, and basically what you have here with the green, with the three lines, you have the blue. This is the winter or the circuit for wintertime. And then you got spring and fall on the green. You got summertime on the red. And so depending on where that sun is on in between the circuit, because it's moving every day, either inward or outward a notch. And when it gets out here, it's December 25th, and it starts going into here until March 20th, or December 20th, March 20th, the solstices. Then so that's where, and it'll stay actually on the line, funny enough, for 3 days, and then start going back the other way. And so if you put this noon dial, which right here's 12, you put it on where I live over here by Pensacola, Florida. So if I have this at noon, here's where the sun is. Okay. And so it's actually dusk over here in Africa. I can call my friends over there, and at the time, they can barely see the sun at their peripheral vision, because you can only see about 3,000 miles distance-wise, because that's about how tall the sun is. So as the sun goes further away, your perception brings it closer to the vanishing point, which is in the center of your perception. So for that would be the horizon line. But then if somebody was over here, it would actually be dawn for them. So with this clock, I can actually roll around and say, okay, at 10 o'clock, if I had, well, wait, what's 20? 20 is 8. Let's go and say 10 o'clock here. So here's 22 hours. It would be 10 o'clock, but it would be noon exactly right here in Australia, right here on this longitude line. So I could, if I made this clock actually working on a 24-hour thing, I could look at the clock and tell you exactly where noon was on the Earth. And it would be accurate.
Can I ask why?
Let me add on to that Talkin Doctrine. Let me point out something very obvious, and this is the glaring pink elephant and purple dragon in the room that are tickling each other that nobody notices, and it's the fact that all of these demonstrations of shadow movement, such as the sundials and like the big one that I've done with 21-foot projection, and the one that you have as well, Talkin Doctrine, require a flat surface, and nobody has even attempted to make the shadows work with a small model of a ball earth ever, because as soon as they try, they fall flat on their face. And what I'm getting into this is that it's not about evidence. It's about a psychosis that we've been brought up to believe something that's completely fiction. It's just like people that believe in evolution, Talkin Doctrine. I'm sure you've seen the new age, the wave of atheists now claim that cats making cats is evolution now. It used to be cats came from non-cats, now cats making kitties is evolution. And that's what I've noticed. The one main factor, everybody can test me on this. I'll bet you $500, possibly my Dodge Ram, if you want to meet somewhere. And I'll bet you this, that anybody and everybody you will ever meet that tries to justify a spherical earth claim can't talk about the shape of the earth. They have to talk about the sun and shadows and everything else but the shape of the earth. You'll never get one ball earth proponent saying, here's where we can see the shape of the earth curving, which you'd see everywhere at 80,000 feet, 100,000 feet. And the higher you go. And every single time they'll show you a model, just like this person has demonstrated, every time they'll show you a diagram of supposedly a sundial not working on a flat earth, they're doing it on a flat piece of paper. And I know this is going to end. I know, but you got to hold on. The reason it's happening is because you're deceived. You don't understand. The fact of the matter is that you'll never be able to show curvature of the earth if your life depended on it. Let me read an article from NASA. This is 1988. Article 2857 TP 1207, organized by NASA Trident Flight Research Center, 1988. This report documents the derivation and definition of a linear aircraft model for a rigid aircraft of constant mass flying over a flat, non-rotating Earth. That's how NASA and the U.S. Air Force and the entire world operates. They already know it's a flat Earth. That's why they have to use the azimuthal equidistant projections. Again, this information isn't for everybody. It's not about evidence. It's about, can you admit that you're wrong? And it's not for everybody. I'm sorry. There's no evidence against this flat earther. I'm not even a flat earther Talkin Doctrine. I can't stand the flat earth community. They're literally the dumbest people I've ever met in my life, because they literally attack Jesus Christ all the time. You've probably heard blood always finds its level. And you guys know this by a couple of people. Ask Victoria Sargent herself, Victoria Sargent in the chat, who's a mod here. So she's got to have some credibility. She's been with me and we've been doing this for months now. The flat earth community is a cesspool of evil. And that's why I don't see Talkin Doctrine there too often either, because they're scumbags. So trust me, I'm not about the flat earth community. I'm about truth. The problem is that Satan has got his hands on this truth. And to the people that can't believe it, he's got his hands on your heart, because of that pride, that itching feeling that you can't admit that you might be wrong. It's a great deception for a reason. Everybody on the left to me, clowns to the right, jokers to the left, we're all being lied to. The flat earth is so simple, you can't get anybody to even talk about the shape of the earth that doesn't believe it's flat. Anyway, I'll digress. Talkin Doctrine. I'm going to let you guys take over, and I'm going to leave because I've already talked too much talking. I don't want to take on any more of your time. But let me just plug my channel real quick. I do this with Paula and Victoria. My channel is Blood Always Finds Its Level. And God had me do this because Christians are greatly deceived. And I didn't know it until 6 months ago. And that's the world we're living and talking. So I appreciate you giving me a chance to speak, Talkin Doctrine. And I probably want you to come on our show in the near future. So send me an email back, sir.
Yes, I will for sure. I didn't realize blood always finds its level was you. Whenever I told you I liked your avatar name the other day, I didn't realize I knew
Are you
Red
serious?
October. Yeah, I
You
didn't
didn't
know
know that
that.
was me? Are you serious, Talking
No,
Doctor? Really? Oh,
no.
that's hilarious. So that's where me and Paula and Victoria runs the chat there, and we're realizing that Christians are greatly deceived, and that's why we actually started it because it turned out again the flat Earth community is a bunch of Satanists, and we know the Earth is flat, but it's not. Again, like I said, it's not about the shape of the Earth. The nice young lady in the chat, the nice people in the chat that were a little bit irritated with me. I understand it's irritating. Listen, people can't understand what I know either. I understand that it's very irritating. Yes, the earth is flat. You're right, though. Jesus Christ is what matters. And if that's what you want to talk about, stick with that. But until you have evidence for a spherical earth, do not make a claim because the Bible says that you are a fool and a folly until you even research the topic. And you'll notice there is no evidence against the flat earth. But again, it's not about that. It's about the creator. And that's what this flat earth movement is hiding from because Talkin Doctrine, they've came to a biblical truth, something the Bible is very obvious. Job 38, who stretched the line upon the foundations of the earth? It is like a seal pressed in clay. Duh, it's flat. Jesus Christ says the earth is the Father's footstool. It doesn't say the earth is the Father's soccer ball. All right. Very simple, kids. I'm sorry. And it's very easy. You just have to admit we've been lied to. Listen, I researched the military industrial complex for 30 years. You don't think it was hard for me to go, I was wrong? Swallow your pride, move on, and you'll be able to do a lot more work in life. So God bless you, gentlemen. And thank you for letting me be here tonight. Again, blood always finds its level. And I appreciate you talking doctrine. So God bless you, sir. And we're going to have to get you on our panel very soon.
Sounds good. Yeah, hit me up.
All right, gentlemen. Everybody have a good night. Thanks again for putting up with me. I love you guys. Have a good one.
Got it. And if you're in the chat still, you still got the link, so pop on in if you want to later, no problem. And Victoria, you should have told me that about the channel. Victoria and Paula, I had no clue. I just know that elected fell out, so it's good to know about the channel, and I will check it out. I will put the channel link in the description along with everybody else who's on the panel as well. It's going to be a practice that I get involved or that I keep doing. So, Jordan, take a minute and respond real quick, but
all right,
then we'll move forward.
Sure. Oh man. What he was saying is there's some truth to it, as in that when people are discussing the shape of the earth, that oftentimes people who are discussing the earth being a sphere don't talk directly about the shape of the earth. And the main reason is because if you're talking about direct observational evidence, if the people you're discussing with believe in a flat earth, this is not true all the time, but most of the time, they don't believe that the direct observational evidence provided from NASA and other sources, basically, just a big conglomerate of other sources, they don't believe that that's real evidence. And so there's no point in talking about...
Real quick. Sorry, I don't mean to interrupt you. Please remember where you're at. Just what's going on in the chat real quick. I mean, I get that it's a little rough tonight. We all sink in our heels. I will say that from my short little conversation with Allie, that she does seem like a sweet person. And I know Victoria is a sister in Christ. So from what I can tell, there might just be a little pride in there, but just
let them put on the gloves.
Right. Well, actually, we could set up a time and we could set up a time and do a broadcast like a 30-minute, like do matches and let people box it out. But today we are we're talking as brothers and sisters in the Lord, and we really shouldn't have strife over this.
No.
But Jordan, yeah, go ahead real quick.
When you discuss things with somebody else and you're trying to convince the other person, going down an avenue that they completely rule out would not be wise. You know, if somebody doesn't believe that any images from NASA are real, which I think NASA spreads a lot of lies, I do, but I don't think every single thing that comes out of NASA is false. But if somebody I'm talking to doesn't believe that things that come from NASA are real, or for that matter, any picture of the Earth is real from high altitudes, at least ones that disagree with their view of the Earth, it doesn't do me any good to discuss that with them, you know, because it's not. If you want to discuss something for the intent of convincing the other person, you have to find evidence, but evidence they'll actually listen to. So I agree with what he's saying a little bit, but there's a reason why people don't talk with people who believe in a flat earth very often about direct observational evidence, because it's not the case all the time, but most of the time they've already written off, you know, observational pictures of the Earth, and that's the main reason.
Well,
All right.
the reason is
Well-
when they've already been proven incredible or uncredible, like faking things, then it's really kind of hard for people to take their other evidence, and that's kind of their fault, you know.
I want to read a real quick article here if I can. It says, to imply that the Earth is flat, you aren't just saying that NASA is lying. You aren't just saying there's a conspiracy within a single company. You're implying that there's a conspiracy involving the world's 71 space agencies, 13 of which have launching capabilities. Not only are you saying the 71 agencies are lying about the shape of the Earth, but every single person is lying or being fooled by the respective companies. Furthermore, every single astrophysicist is, by your implications, a scam artist getting paid to do research through telescopes and instruments that would be useless if the world were flat. So roughly 75,000 people are lying about what they do for a living. Not only is it absurd to imply that a NASA program under United States government could pull off this conspiracy, that all 71 space agencies around the world are involved in taking part of some conspiracy, and every astronomer, astrophysicist, and astronaut are also taking part. So that was an article I've seen.
Well, I think that's been proven, hasn't it? That pretty much all of everything that has to do with space has to do with the United States of America. Right?
Right, and it's all been a lie.
It's
And
all been Freemasonic and what are them weird Christian
Jesuit, Rosicrucian.
no, they're Mormons. Yeah, only Mormons
Right.
can go to space.
But not everybody's
Right.
in on it. I mean, you have different tiers of what people know. It's the same thing with like evolution. It's everybody has the same evidence, but it's how they interpret the evidence. So
Well, it's because they're taught.
they're punching numbers in the computer just like anybody else. I mean, they're not up there looking at it. So,
And
Yeah.
you're also talking about 2 Corinthians 4:4. Let me start in verse 3 real quick. But if our gospel be hid, it is hid to them that are lost, in whom the God of this world hath blinded the minds of them which believe not, lest the glorious gospel of Christ, who is the image of God, should shine unto them. So the God of this world, I mean, you talk to me about 71 space stations, and I'll talk to you about principalities, dominions, and actually Satan's kingdom.
Right, and the point of that I didn't write it, but the point of that would be to believe that every single one, there is no Christian, like you had Buzz Aldrin and John Glenn that talked about, this is what Buzz said. He brought wine and unleavened bread to the moon with him, and when he went up there, when he came back, he made a statement. He said it was so glorious to be able to walk on the moon, but nothing is more glorious than my walk with Jesus Christ. Now, he says this, and I know you brought it up before about you don't believe that there are any Christians in these programs, but I can't say that for sure because I'm not going to judge his salvation, so I don't know. But I know what he said, and I thought that was beautiful that he would say something like that. So to go against what it says because of my preconceived notions of NASA and all this, it's hard for me, is what I'm saying. I can't dismiss it. I can't say that he's not.
I hear you. I hear you. And for me, it was tough because I was, as a young kid, I mean, I was all into the whole space race or not race, but wanting to even be an astronaut at a really young age, even. So it was tough for me to swallow. One of the reasons why it wasn't so hard was because I never believed in the moon landing. Now, I thought it was because they wanted to fake out the Russians because of the Cold War and this and that.
Does
but
anybody here actually believe in that?
I don't think anybody here does. I don't know. Brett,
I'm just checking.
Believe which one? That it was fake?
Yeah, the whole thing is fake.
No, I think it was real.
The moon landing?
Yeah, I have no reason to doubt it. I mean, I understand that. I looked into it. Yeah, it's all
Brett,
the stuff about trying to beat the Russians.
Have you ever been in a vacuum before?
Have you?
No, I don't want to be in a vacuum. And the thing is that, we have submarines that have like half-inch thick hull that go down 1,000 feet underneath the water. But we have a homeless tweaker shelter that apparently landed on the moon. And the vacuum is the exact opposite of the pressure from,
Okay, and let me ask you, where did you get all that information? You got that from somebody else.
Well, I looked at it.
Right, but
I was at.
You looked at it, but that don't mean that.
I was at the Space Center there in Texas. I looked at their stuff that they had, and it was bullcrap. It was absolute bullcrap. I looked at that and I go, "There's no way you're going to go in complete vacuum in a cloth suit like that. There's just no way." And then they have a rover, a moon lander or something like that down there, and I'm like, "There's no way." The vacuum would rip that thing apart completely.
Yeah, I'll say that it's very possible that it was all fake. But for me, it's just I don't.
Oh, I think it's 100% because nobody else has done it. The only space agency on the planet right now is USA. And you can say China or Russia or something like that, but no, it's USA. We're the only ones doing it, and it's fake.
My question is, why would they fake the Earth shot halfway to the moon, by setting it up for the
Then we have to talk about whether or not rockets can even exist in space, because it's scientifically impossible. And scientists say this, and it's been proven. Rockets don't work in space. So how do they get there?
They just shoot a rocket up in there. That's that. They just shoot it up in there.
Well, a rocket has to push on something. And if you're in a total vacuum, and I think it's 10,000 kilometers an hour is what a rocket pushes at. The people doing the moon landings and stuff were doing twice that. It's physically impossible according to science. And that, that's where I come back to like flat earth and why I like.
You mean according to all the conspiracy theorists? I mean,
no,
it's a big conspiracy out there. So how do you know your information that is true? It seems to me that if all these things are lies, how do you get your information?
Well, because of if they tell me something this is science.
The Bible.
If they tell me something is science, I'm not even going into the Bible. If they tell me something is science, this is mathematically how it works. And I can prove with their own mathematics that it's impossible. I know they're lying to me because they're telling me a story and I can prove them wrong with their own story. It has nothing to do with the Bible.
I wanted to make a point related to people's views on whether NASA and the astrophysicists, whole space community at large is lying. The reason that I focus on the difference between geocentrism, a stationary Earth, and a flat Earth is because there are so many. Well, I believe that those two are true and the other one is not. But when it comes to like the vastness of a conspiracy that's needed, when it comes to geocentrism and a stationary Earth, there is literally no visual difference in those two things. There is no conspiracy needed or required for a stationary Earth or for a geocentric universe because they both look exactly the same visually. Whereas the flat Earth it requires a very, I'm not saying it's not possible. Like, I know if God wanted to let it and Satan wanted to do it, that the whole world could be deceived. I mean, the whole world will be deceived. I'm not saying that's not possible. I'm just saying that there's a reason why there's such a big difference between that leap of the Earth is flat and geocentrism and a stationary Earth. Because a stationary Earth and geocentrism, it looks identical. When you look out with your telescopes, everything looks identical. The planets look in the same way in the sky. The sun and moon look the same way in the sky. There's nothing different except people's conclusions about experiments and observations, right? All the experiments will give the same results. Actually, some experiments will give different results, but observationally, when you actually look at things, there's no conspiracy required. Like, anybody who looks at the sky will see the same thing. But with the flat Earth, it's not going to look the same versus a spherical Earth. So that would require a very large conspiracy to cover up the Earth being flat instead of the Earth being spherical. I just wanted
actually, that begs a question. Do you believe the sun is 93 million miles away in your geocentric view?
I'm not really decided on that. I'm not inclined to believe it's that far away. I don't really know, and I don't view that as that important to me. I don't really have a strong position either way.
I got you. Well, no, I think that the pictures from what NASA says compared to what we see is totally different. I think that we've got plenty of images, even hot spots on the top of clouds that show the sun is very close and the light is extremely local, especially whenever you look at, because living here on the Gulf, you can drive over a bridge, and I know everybody's seen it no matter where you're at. You've seen the sun breaking through the clouds, and you've got the sun rays, going at angles, converging at a point shortly above the clouds. Well, here you can actually see where those points hit. And so you can see, oh, it's hitting on this side of the bay and it's hitting over here in the middle of the bay. And so I know roughly about the distance between it. And so using math, geometry, I can calculate about the distance. If I could actually get the exact mileage and the exact angle, I could come up with the exact distance where that light is coming from.
I think they say it's like 3,000 miles or something, don't they?
Right. Well, many people have done this exact experiment, and it comes out to just above 3,000 miles. But if you're in a place to where you can see where those sun rays each hit, you can tell it's much closer than it would have to be. Well, and also, if the sun were 93 million miles away, there's no way that could be possible.
Well, it's a perfect coincidence, too, that the moon is the exact same size. It's a coincidence. It has nothing to do with the Bible. Never mind that.
No, I mean, that's very true. I mean, that's, it's just more evidence of a creator.
You mean it appears to be the same size?
Yeah, whatever way you want to put it. You know, whether it is or I don't believe they're the same size. I think actually if they're not the same size, it's even more evidence for a creator, because the fact that he would place these objects in such a way that they would appear to be the same size and you'd be able to have, you know, an eclipse and these things.
I agree with that. I would say I wanted to take this a different direction of why I believe a spherical Earth, why I believe the sun is the center and not the Earth. Because,
Oh, this is going to be great, man.
Yeah.
well, I can screen share, can I? Can I do that?
You should be able to.
Yeah, of course. If you're asking permission, of course.
Well, I've never used it, so.
Okay, so if you put your cursor, the left hand side, a menu bar will pop up. If you click on the green button, it'll pop up another menu, and just choose which screen, and then
Okay.
it'll start screen sharing for you.
All right. So can you see that?
Yeah.
Do you see my screen?
Yep.
I'm all the way on the left. That says the good side. That's where I am.
Okay. All right. This is what I was explaining to you guys yesterday, but this is going to get, I'll make my point once I get through it. I'll just go through it real quick. If you see on the bottom is day one of creation. On top is the first 1,000 years on earth. So the first 1,000 years would represent Adam and Eve. The bottom would represent the days of creation. So you see similar things. When Adam and Eve ate the apple, they knew the difference between good and evil. Okay. Day one of creation, he separated the light and the dark. Okay. Then you go to day two, the waters, he separated the waters from the firmament. They basically lowered it. In my mind, I picture him putting the water into the earth, and the earth, it didn't rain, it mist came up from the ground, and that's scriptural. Well, in the second millennium was Noah, when he brought the waters up, the great flood. Third day of creation, he gathered waters and dry land appeared. Same thing happened in the 3000th year with Moses. He separated the waters. He gathered the waters and dry land appeared. That's the crossing of the Red Sea. That's the big topic of that millennium. And here's where I'll stop it right here. You can keep going, but on the fourth day of creation, God made two great lights, the sun and the moon. Okay. In the 4000th year, he sent two great lights, Jesus and John. Jesus represents the sun. Is it coincidence that we call it the sun? And then we have John, who reflects Jesus. He's reflecting the light of Jesus. John even said, I am not that true light. Okay, so there's a parallel here. So I'll go to this. So when I looked at, this is the first picture of an atom ever. So it's a sphere. And do you see anything similar to this and this? It's all spheres. And here you got orbits of the nucleus. To me, I look at it as God's fingerprint on creation. He set up a model, a pattern, deep. And this is something that only the last generation would even get with the technology and stuff. Well, not necessarily the last generation, but and then you notice that
Well, I think
model
the spiral is
similar to
more.
that. I
Okay.
mean, see, the sun representing Jesus. Why would we put ourselves at the center? I mean, to me,
Let me
that's
ask real quick. So
Yeah.
you're saying a universe that's centered around the sun, right? Not the standard model?
correct.
Okay. So that I just wanted to make that distinction, because you're not saying that the standard model is correct. You're saying that the sun is the center of the universe, and the earth around the sun is also really close to the center.
Correct.
Okay,
Correct.
that's interesting.
Because Jesus is the point of creation. He is the center. He is that light. Okay, so to put us at the center, I can't even. I won't even go there. But even the DNA, the breakdown of everything. Everything's sphere. Okay, everything is his fingerprint is the pattern I get. And just look at the water molecule. It takes a hydrogen and oxygen to create water. So here, to me, this represents the Trinity of, water of life. You got the Father, this is the Godhead, and you got the Holy Spirit and Jesus, and together they create water. To me, spiritually, I can see God's fingerprints on everything once you break it down to the raw core of the very nucleus of everything. So when I look at the universe, I can picture this because it matches everything that he's ever created. He put his fingerprint on it, and only less knowledge will be increased in the last days to even make sense of any of this. None of the other thousands of years would ever understand this. And my bigger point would be this. We talk about Satan deceiving the whole world. We know that's going to happen, but that's not going to happen on a more larger scale until the Great Tribulation, until the light of the world is taken out. So I see it. Yes, there's a lot of deception going on. Fact. But the way I see it is God is in control. There is nothing that God is not in control of right now. He will hand over the reins to Satan, let him have the short time. But right now, God's fingerprint is on everything. He is in control of everything. And Satan don't have a say in anything. So he can only manipulate someone's mind to do certain things. But if you look deep enough, you can find God's fingerprint. And he's not going to deceive you because he is in your heart. And I know that PillBox was in the room, and he says, if you believe in anything other than else, Satan's got his hand on you. Well, that's a lie. Satan can't come near me. I am a child of God. I am the light of this world. And I am not worried about Satan. And I know Satan doesn't got his hands on me. So for someone to say stuff like that, I shrug it off. But at the same time, he's telling me I'm deceived. And I believe that the Holy Spirit leads me to all truth because I seek him and I only want his approval. So when I've seen these things and someone says, why do I believe? I look at the fingerprints and this is what I see. So anyway, that's just my take on it.
I like a lot of what you said, and I agree with a lot of what you said. I do think that the fingerprint of God is more than a sphere. I think it's more like the Fibonacci sequence, how we find that in creation and find that everywhere.
Oh man, Fibonacci, you want to go into that? That's a whole other doctrine.
Right. Now, and I don't think I mean I don't want to talk for PillBox, but I don't think he was saying at all that anybody who believes in the globe Earth is believing or has Satan has grips on them, other than a lot of times where people won't look into it is because of their pride. And so for
I don't know about that. I think people like to choose the easy path, and that's just what I think about that. I mean, I'm lucky enough in my current where I've been for the last few years that I can take the hard path every single time and it's not going to hurt me. But if I'm making $100,000 a year and it's going to hurt me, then I probably wouldn't take that path. So,
yeah, sometimes it's just avoiding having to put out effort and potential trouble than pride. A lot of times it could be pride, but just not wanting to stir up your life.
One thing I wanted to mention, as far as, is it too far-fetched to believe that all the, countries are in cahoots and deceiving? On the same hand, we could say, well, is it too hard to believe that Satan, as the god of this world, is in charge of all the kingdoms of the earth?
Well, I'm pretty sure that God said that, didn't he?
Yeah, when he offered those to Jesus to worship him.
Yeah.
So, that I wouldn't say it's too far-fetched, because Satan, the master deceiver, would be getting tricking all sides, playing both sides against the middle. That's the best deception, to have one extreme on one side and then this other view on the other, and then both be wrong. That would be his master of deception.
What I would like to think about that discussion is, I really wonder why Satan is so mad, and that's really what gets me going. And the Bible, why is Satan so mad? Why did he do that? And it was because that I believe personally that people were given creative inspiration, and they were given something that Satan didn't have, and he's mad. He's really mad about it.
Well, I also believe that he was told that he was going to have to serve us.
Well, according to the Bible, we're judging angels, so
Well,
Satan's an angel, so I guess, yeah.
Just to clarify, though, when if you looked at my thing on the 6,000th year, okay, God gave man dominion, and he told Adam to subdue the earth. Well, that's on that 6th day of creation. On the 6,000th year, where we're at now, yes, of course, the parallel is Antichrist has dominion, and he is subduing the earth. So I agree with that. He is the God of this world. He is subduing it. He does have dominion, but God is still in control. And if you're, like I was just saying, if you're seeking him, the Holy Spirit guides you into all truth, and you will see God's fingerprint. So Satan can't take that away. He can try to hide it from you. But,
I honestly don't think that Satan can do very much because I don't think he has any creative force.
Right. But
I think the reason he's mad is, like I said, because people are created in the image of God, and we have creative force, and he doesn't have that, and he's mad. And he took over Adam, and Adam, lost his kinglyship, you would call it, and so Satan runs the world. Okay, but there is a difference there between people and people like angels. I don't know, cherubim, like Satan. There's a difference that they cannot have what we have, and that's the reason that they are mad. That's the reason that they come after you, is because they don't have creative spirit. They don't have anything.
Right. God created us, and God loves us, and that makes them very angry.
Hey, Brett.
Well, God loves them too. It's weird. I'm obviously not in heaven, but it's like, that's weird. You're a super powerful being, and you're going to be all mad. I don't get it.
I do have a question, Brett. Since you mentioned the firmament and stuff like that, what about the verse that says that talks about the waters above the firmament? If you believe in space, what do you believe about that verse? I think it's Psalm, I want to say somewhere 90. I can't remember. I could look it up maybe.
Yeah, that's in Psalms and Genesis, where the water is above the firmament and below the firmament. As far as having a visual picture, only thing I can say is when he created Earth, it was just a ball of water. And then he says he gathered the waters to the dry land up there. That's all I can picture in my head. I've went over it, and it's like trying to figure out what a void looks like. I can't even imagine it.
But what it says though in Psalms, it's like related to the here and now. Like there's now the waters in the heavens, the waters above the firmament now.
Well, the one thing I would point out is to remember what the firmament is. And this is where, you'll have different opinions, because people have different perceptions of what they think the firmament is, or whether it's solid or how big it is. But the stars, from my recollection, were placed in the firmament. So if it's talking about the waters that are above the firmament, it's going to be above the firmament, not inside of the firmament. So that's just the only thing I would clarify, is if the waters are above the firmament, wherever the stars are, it's beyond that.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I've thought about this for a while before. And what I came to, and this is just in my head, trying to picture something, what I'm reading, is you got God who had to create time. Where he is eternity. It's hard to understand that a place where there's no time. So he had to create an area that held time. And so he had to insulate an area from eternity. So you guys look at Earth being surrounded by an ice wall. Well, I expanded it outward, and I think that possibly that we're inside, maybe inside, he used ice to insulate our universe from eternity. So inside this, he started creating everything. So everything inside this, just picture that's an ice ball. Everything inside of this is insulated from eternity. So that's where he put the stars and everything. And then he got right down to the nucleus. And that's when he created the earth. And that's just how I picture it.
There's a lot of people that actually teach that it's a ball earth and then there's an ice wall around it. And the stars are put in the ice wall. And the stars aren't very far away, whatever. But it's like an ice wall around us and nobody can ever go to space. And I would actually like to hear about that. What you guys think about whether or not people can actually even go to space.
Well, do you believe in satellites?
I'm on the cusp.
Well, there's a website you can go to. I've already done it. It shows you exact times that satellites will pass overhead.
Yeah,
if you
I
have
know.
a telescope, you can see them, and you can see the International Space Station.
Well,
I gotta call.
I'm on the cusp with that.
Right, I gotta call BS because there are no satellites that are bigger than planes. And when I can see a plane at 7 miles,
we get to do fisticuffs. Perfect.
I'll just say okay.
Well, right. Well, think about it, because think about where you see the plane at 50 miles. That's about the same, or 30,000 feet at 3 miles. That's about the same size as what people say they see these satellites at. Now, I'm not telling you I know exactly what they are, but they're certainly not satellites that are low Earth orbit of over 400 miles high, because a plane which is 3 times larger than most satellites it can barely be seen, almost like microscopically, at 30,000 feet. So if we multiply that by 420 divided by 7, I mean, you're going that much further and looking at an object that's 30% the size and expecting to really see it. It's like, no, let's use our common sense.
That the last was talking about using a telescope to see it, not the naked eye.
Well, you can't see a telescope. You can't use a telescope and see a satellite orbiting. I mean, try being 1 minute off,
No,
1
honestly,
second off on a telescope and see if you see the star you're trying to look at. You're not gonna catch a satellite just flying by real quick.
I am an amateur astronomer guy a little bit, and I thought there were satellites all the time, but there's no way that they could possibly be. I mean, they fly way too fast, and there's no way you could actually zoom in with a telescope. Just not possible.
Right, and at that distance, if you, and I'm not saying you're not using your common sense, Brett. I don't mean to sound like that at all, but I'm just saying that if we use our common sense and put in the math of what we can see compared to what the numbers are that they say they are, it's just impossible. And another thing about satellites is it's like 9/11. You know, if we use their information for their information, the materials just aren't structurally it doesn't work out, because most of the satellites are aluminum, gold, titanium, all of which that melt at much, much, much lower temperatures than what they say the ionosphere is.
Yeah. They're gonna go up there in their tin can with 2,000 degree heat, and and there's a zero vacuum that they can't even reproduce on Earth. It's BS. Everything that they say is BS.
So that all brings me back to, what do you trust? I mean, where's everybody getting their information? If because it sounds like everything's a conspiracy.
No, it's not a conspiracy, and I think that's where Matthias and Daniel are off into a land that I don't go into. But if I can objectively prove myself that this is not the truth, then that is not the truth, according to me, because I've done it. And all that other stuff is just fantasy, whatever. And I've been doing this a long time, like 5 years, something like that, about especially evolution, things like that. Right. I use science and I disprove science with their own stuff. They disprove themselves because there are good scientists out there who believe that what I objectively see and what I can objectively prove is the truth. They are good people, agnostic, atheist, whatever they are. And I look at that and I can repeat those experiments myself. And so that's where I am with that. When it comes to some other far out flat earth stuff, I'm not right. I don't really, no. I mean, maybe, but I can prove that the curvature of the earth, they tell me, is not correct. I can prove that airplanes cannot fly.
Right. Well, but our thing is, I mean, all that stuff is very interesting. I love science, but it brings us back from my point of view back to the Bible, and that's the only thing that we could truly trust 100%.
Well, yeah, obviously, but the Bible does not say that the earth is flat. Jesus did not come down here and say,
not straight out.
You're on. Yeah. I mean, you have to really extrapolate that. I mean, I don't, see with the flat earth thing, I think it's a fun discussion, but it doesn't have much to do with the Bible. I did my stand on geocentrism like a couple of years ago. I even did a flat earth video a few months ago, something like that. But there's nothing in the Bible that said Jesus did not say you live on a flat earth. So I can't be doctrinal.
Right. Because if it did, we wouldn't have this conversation.
Right. But then on the flip side, all the science in what I've learned is they have an explanation for everything, and it's plausible. So you can't even take a scientific proof per se, like you talked about the curvature. Well, they have explanations of why you can see things. So it's not a definitive proof per se. It's all interpretive, depending on what evidence we all see.
All right. Well, I'm going to say one more thing and I have to go to the bathroom. But yeah, when you go up and people say that they see curvature in a jet and they go to a mountaintop and they see curvature, they're lying. You can't. You can't. And I actually have proof on my screen, and maybe we'll show it. Let's see if I can share it. People see that?
Not yet.
Yeah, I saw it.
Yeah, we can.
Okay. This is
I can see it.
This is the very first image from space. The very first one from the United States. They stole a V2 rocket and they shot it up 67 miles That's 350,000 feet. Okay? Does it look like there's a curvature to the Earth there? And this is what
Well, it just looks zoomed in. I mean, that doesn't tell me anything.
this is pretty much the image that changed my opinion about the whole thing, where I'm open to it and I'm actually going to look at it, because 350,000 miles and it's flat. That is flat. And then down here, they tried to fix it. If you look up, let's see, first photo from space. If you go down here, then they're trying to fix it. And you can see that they're splicing photos in. But the actual photo is this one where it's flat. They're lying to us. They're lying to us about 25,000 miles around, whatever. Whether or not it's a ball or not, you have the constellation problem. That's my main thing. But
relating to, I don't know if it's the same constellation problem you're talking about, but kind of the theme is that, you know, when you start to get into a lot of science, and I think, you know, the problem with science is more the people and not the science, because science is just science, but, you know, people have biases and we draw different conclusions. So I like really simple stuff. And the one thing that, you know, when I believed in flat Earth and, you know, I kept researching, what I try to do is to prove myself, meaning, like, when I feel like I'm solid in something, I try to find people who will poke holes in it. And one of those holes is essentially the southern star spiral. I don't know, however you want to say it, but so on a flat Earth, you know, you have the North Star, which isn't, you know, specifically the center, but basically, you know, you can take time-lapse images of the stars and, you know, you get a spiral in the sky. And the idea in the flat Earth, people have different ideas, but a lot of times people in the flat Earth think that, you know, you have a dome and the stars are essentially inset in the dome somehow, right? And that, you know, there's a lot of perspective issues. And I agree that you could have, you know, similar perspectives for a large part of the Earth. But when it comes to people in the Southern Hemisphere, you start seeing, and this is directly observable. It's one of those things where no conspiracy can hide it because the average person can see. You know, if you have somebody, you know, on the southern tip of South America, I'm exaggerating. You don't have to be at the southern tip of South America, but just in the Southern Hemisphere far enough, you can take time-lapse photographs of the sky and you can see the stars spiraling around a different point, not the North Star, right? So there's two central points that stars circle around from our perspective. And I don't know how that's possible on a flat Earth. At least I haven't seen any explanation of how that's possible. It's obviously clearly possible on a spherical Earth because you have an axis. Whether people believe the Earth spins or whether the universe is spinning around the Earth, which is what I believe, you have an axis in which the spinning occurs, and both points on that axis, when you look out towards one axis or the other axis, you're going to have 2 points in which the stars spin around. So does anybody like have an explanation for how that other point is on the flat Earth?
I have an explanation. It was done with mirrors.
Yeah, convincing.
Isn't that the only thing that you saw? Because I'm sure that you've researched that, because that's the main problem that I have with the whole thing. And the only explanation and the only video I ever saw was it was done with mirrors. And I'm like, God put a mirror up there?
Or a reflection of the dome, maybe.
Yeah, and I get this. Okay. Reflection of the dome, I completely agree with. What Hubble looks out into space, they're looking at an ice dome. And yes, I do believe that there's an ice dome out there. But
You believe in Hubble?
well, I don't know. I mean, we haven't even talked about that yet, about whether or not you think you can go to space, because the research that I've been doing, it doesn't even seem possible to go into space according to what they're telling us.
Well, here's the interesting part, and this is the reason why I think that satellites and telescopes are real, is because the information, and like if you watch that Principle documentary, you'll see what I mean. There's a lot of other information out there, but the information that is coming out from sky surveys of the placements of stars, the microwave background radiation, whatever people believe that that's from, the different things that are being measured by looking into space are actually pointing to a universe that's centered around the Earth. And so it would seem odd to me that if Satan were creating, I do believe that's possible if Satan wanted to do that and God let him, but it wouldn't make sense to me that if Satan were to create a vast conspiracy and fabricate these things, why he would have them point to a geocentric universe. That doesn't jive to me. Like, you would think he wouldn't want to poke holes into his own story. It wouldn't make sense.
Well, he can't help it. That's what I think, is he's not smart enough and he can't help it.
Hey, real quick, guys, I'm sorry to interrupt. I had to return because somebody said, "Who should we trust?" And I wanted to know who said that, because I was kind of shocked that somebody would ask that question. Who was the gentleman that said, "Who should we trust?"
I never said who should we trust. I said, where do you get your information if everything is a conspiracy? What
everything isn't right.
What information do you trust?
Okay, right. Everything isn't a conspiracy if you fell for the scam. It's like, my grandfather worked for Lockheed Martin. It's called compartmentalization. He would bring home these actual models of the space shuttle, and I would have them. I was 6 and 7 years old. I thought, oh, this is really cool, blah, 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 whatever. And he had no idea what they're doing. The right hand has no idea what the left hand's doing. It's just like the evolutionary movement. Are you saying it's a giant conspiracy that 100 million scientists across the world are lying about evolution? I mean, a 5-year-old child knows that there's no such thing as evolution. You know, the 2-year-old child learning to walk also knows the earth is flat. It's not a conspiracy if you are fooled. That's why it's called a deception. The Bible says right here in 1 John 2:15, love not the world, neither the things that are in the world. If any man love the world, the love of the Father is not in him. For all that is in the world, the lust of the flesh and the lusting eyes and the pride of life, is not of the Father, but is of the world. And the world passeth away, and the lust thereof. But he that doeth the will of God abideth forever. When the word world does not mean earth, it means this society, this realm that Satan controls. It's all satanic. What does God say about people? It says, not one of them is good, and every man is a liar. And then it says over here in Matthew 16:23, it says, but he turned and said to Peter, get thee behind me, Satan, thou art an offense unto me, for thou savorest not the things that be of God, but those that be of men. And out of, let's say 10 to 15 billion people have lived in history, Peter is in the top 50 most important people in history, and he was deceived by Satan. Just like these men are right now in this room. I'm sorry, that's the reality. I know it hurts, but this is the reality. The Bible is very clear about this, just like I was deceived as well. And I will nowhere be ever as important as Job or Peter or Matthew, Mark or Luke or John. There's not going to be a Bible about PillBox. You're not going to have it. It's not. I was deceived. So are you. So are other people. That's the reality. Satan has a hold of this world. And again, talking about the stars and hiding from the shape of the earth. When you look at a ceiling fan, draw a smiley face on a ceiling fan, stand on one side of the room and watch it go around. Get to the other side of the room. Now that part of the ceiling fan, you are observing it going the opposite direction. This is child's play, gentlemen. You're deceived. Come on now. Let's wake up.
I feel like you're
coffee, smell the
too
ashes.
passionate about this subject.
Yeah, because what you're spreading is child abuse. If you tell these children that they are on a magical ball, yes, that's why I'm passionate. Yes, guess who's a teacher of children and who isn't in the room right now?
I'm gonna have to mute.
Yeah. Yeah, thanks for playing. That's the reality, is that it's child abuse to teach people they're on a magical monkey ball. And that's what we're trying to tell you, to stop doing it and trust the Bible. When an 8-year-old kid asks me any question about the Bible, I get to tell them the truth and say, no, my government has cartoons and I should be able to trust them. No, that's not true. It says right here, love not the world, neither the things that are in the world. If any man love the world, the love of the Father is not in him. You're deceived. Just like evolution is child abuse. Teaching children that they come from animals is child abuse. It's all Satanism is child abuse.
For a second. Look,
It's reality. I'm sorry.
Okay, but we've
Yes,
already
it's reality.
established. Okay, thank you. But we've already established that this is not a doctrinal issue. And now that you're saying, what you're saying is Satan is all over us and deceiving us.
It says right here that Jesus turned to Peter and said, "Get behind me, Satan." And you think you can't be deceived? That's how I know I'm guaranteeing you're deceived now. Now you've basically admitted it, because you're saying you're better than Peter.
Hold on,
God says, if it were possible, even the very elect would be deceived.
Right, but that's
and you right. So you also think, see, that pride you have. You think you're elect. You think you're special and too smart. That's my point. That's how I know you're deceived.
Hold on. Because let me step in the middle here. Because while I agree with everything PillBox is saying, and the passion, you have to just be a little bit less aggressive, because people are taking it the wrong way. Now, I'm deceived by Satan on many things. So, Brett, that's not a bad thing to be deceived by Satan. So, I mean, it is, but it's not saying like you're a lost person, or that, and when he talks about child abuse, I'm glad he brought up the evolution, because I do think that if you tell a child that they were raised by monkeys, or that sodomy and transgender is natural, without showing them and giving them the option of the other thing, of God's way, that is child abuse. But PillBox is I've known him for quite a while. He's very passionate and aggressive, but it doesn't mean that he doesn't have a heart and want people to see it his way. But he's also been, if I could speak for you on this one, being in the arena and talking to people about this, we've gotten so much hate. It's kind of hard not to be aggressive in these places. So I'm not giving you an excuse.
You got 67 thumbs down. Man,
Well,
God bless you for that. That's a good, if you got that many thumbs down, man, you're starting to surpass me, Talking Doctrine. So God bless you for that. And I'm not mad at anybody here. Listen, brothers, you are brothers in Christ. If I didn't care about you, I wouldn't be telling. If you were the atheist side, I'd be saying good for him to he needs his space religion. That's the number one thing that the atheism, the Antichrist have yearned for and loved for now 500 years, is this idea of other terra firma outside of here, other places we can escape to, other space. There is no such thing as space. And like Talkin Doctrine was explained, there are no satellites. It took them 20 years, gentlemen, to put 10,000 land-based cell towers in northern Africa so that we could have ground positioning systems. They're not global positioning systems, they're ground positioning systems. That's how we got all our communication. If we had satellites, why would we have to install 100,000 ground-based towers? Why is it when I drive away from the city, I lose my cell reception? It's just child's play. And the reason, Talkin Doctrine's right. Oh, by the way, Talkin, I'm surprised you didn't mention the distance. 35,000 feet. You have a hard time looking at that 737. Satellite is at 2.3 million feet is what they claim. You're not going to see it. He's absolutely right. 2.3 million. I can barely see it at 35,000. Okay, good thing I got my glasses on. There it is. It's a deception. No, it doesn't have to be a grand conspiracy. My grandfather worked for Lockheed Martin. He has no idea. He had no idea. Hopefully he knows now. Hopefully he even made it to heaven. I can't guarantee that. He wasn't that. I don't come from a good family, guys. I came from a family, a bunch of criminals that believed in these lies. And it almost took me with them. I almost went to hell with these people because they believed in all these lies. I'm not saying you're abusing children. I'm saying it's an effect. That's why Jesus Christ says, anyone offend my little ones, you are better to tie a millstone around your neck and cast it into the depths of the ocean, because it is detrimental. It's the number one atheist religion. The most important thing to the scoffer is this whole space garbage ideology. Yes, yes, I'm offensive, and I'm sorry. This is like knowledge scavenger, ask her. It's like the emergency room. When you get to the emergency room, they're going to shove things down your throat. They're going to put needles in your body. They're going to pump your butt. They're going to be crushing and breaking your ribs to try to keep you alive. It happens. You ever give somebody CPR before? Boy, I'll tell you, you'll have a different look on life. And maybe that's why I'm different. I apologize to offend you, sir, but I have to let you know that we can be deceived. I've been deceived. We can absolutely be deceived, even if you are elect. I don't know if I'm elect. I know that I am absolutely 100% a Bible-believing Christian, and I will die for this truth, and no one is going to take this truth away from me. And I have been able to teach this to many kids in the last 3 years, many parents, many families who have now turned to Christ because of this truth. It's a big deal to millions of people, and every one of them counts. Like Knowledge Scavenger says, what happened to the little girl at the beach putting the turtles back into the ocean that were dying in the sun? And then somebody said, now who cares? You can't save them all. Well, I bet it matters to that one. I bet it matters to that one baby I just put back in the water. It's going to matter to that one person you save, even if they're a 90-year-old grandmother. It matters. Every single person you save in the name of Jesus Christ matters, gentlemen. That's what it's all about when it comes down to this. So I apologize I offended you. I'm gonna get out. I'm probably not gonna listen anymore. I don't want to, because I hear something and I have to say something. Listen, sir. Romans 1:18. It's all good. Romans 8:28. All things work together for good. That's why it's a good thing these bad things happen to me. That's what this says right here. It says, we know that all things work together for good to them that love God, to them who are called according to his purpose. So I hope I'm part of his purpose. Without these horrible things, it wouldn't be good now. So I'm really good at making lemonade. It's not all ice cream and rainbows and cupcakes. It's a terrible world, a terrible deception. God is the owner of Satan is the little g God of this world for 6,000 years now. He controls these people. He controls the minds. He tells us and directs media and these governments and these so-called conspiracies. There doesn't have to be a conspiracy if they're all deceived. Period.
Right. And everything spot on pretty much again. I just want to say that as long as you're trusting in Jesus Christ and resting in his finished work, that you are the elect. That we as his children by default are elect. It's not Calvinism. And none of us will be deceived when the great deception happens and the Antichrist reveals himself and claims to be God. So yeah, I do believe I love your passion. I'm used to it, so I get it, but I remember when I first met you too. So I remember what it's like when somebody first hears you and first meets you. If they don't agree with you, if they agree with you, it's like, man, I love this guy. If they disagree with you, it's like, man, this guy's getting under my skin, so but getting under the skin has really helped a lot of people that I've seen in arenas and rooms with you, PillBox, actually come to the truth of Jesus Christ. So, use your gift as it works.
Amen. Yeah, no, you're right. And Rand Campbell called it the pepper spray of truth. Listen, not everybody's going to like me, but it doesn't matter. And Talkin Doctrine, and maybe you guys can reach a lot more people than me. The difference is there might be a couple people that I reach that you couldn't. It's not the number. Like I said, every little one matters. Maybe it was Starfish that little girl was trying to save and put back into the water. Every single, it matters to that one though, doesn't? That's all I'm claiming. I'm claiming we got to be very hesitant. We have to be cautious because we know the world is greatly received. What would Satan stop at? He would stop at nothing. It would be to the nth degree. It would be to the end. Every last morsel of his satanic being is going to try to kill as many of us and send us to the lake of fire as possible. And there's Christians that don't even believe in that because they're deceived. There's 1,000 deceptions. This is just one. And I'm saying it matters to who it matters to. If it changed the minds of one person to stop believing, they're Star Wars babies. They're the dumbest human beings in 7,000 years of human history. It's the dumbest culture that we've ever experienced. These people are absolutely deceived, and they were taught by television. They're government cartoons. So I don't know what else to say. I apologize for doing it this way. I only have one way. I'm not a two-faced person. I have one personality when I get motivated, and blood always finds its level. So thank you, gentlemen. I appreciate your time again. I'm gonna take off for the night. So thank you again, Talkin Doctrine. You guys take care, whether you hate me or not. You continue doing what you're doing as long as it's about Jesus Christ. So God bless you guys.
Yeah, no problem.
Right now, somebody's said in the chat room, I wish I could speak, or wish I knew how PillBox speaks like that. He does have a radio voice and persona, so it's kind of funny. But yeah, for people who hadn't met PillBox before, if you get to hear him again, I guess it's Blood Always Finds Its Level. Check out the channel. I'll put it in the description. But you'll see tonight wasn't anything special. That's his passion. He's been that way as long as I've known him. He first came on D13 when we were doing those broadcasts.
Honestly, he sounds like me like 3 years ago.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow. You've mellowed out.
Oh yeah, I'm way mellow now. I'm like, I'm not going into stuff. But yeah, I'm pretty much like that.
I could see that. You sort of sound like him.
Right. He reminds me a lot of my buddy Call in that aspect of passion, aggression. But Call's passion is exposing Satanism and the abuse of children.
Oh yeah.
Where PillBox, his is turned to flat Earth for sure.
Well, if there's something you're to be passionate about and something that you're going to actually broadcast yourself to the entire world, you might as well be passionate about it. And that's kind of my position on that. And yeah, 2 or 3 years ago, if you listen to me like in my old videos, I sound just like them. Just exactly like them.
Now, are these videos on the Max Bauer channel?
Oh yeah,
I'm going to listen. Hey, and I do want to add real quick. I don't like calling people out too much. But Allie in the chat room says that she likes Colin Casey. The only Casey I know is the Enter the Stars, the Gnosticism. You go into yourself for salvation. If it's that one, you guys be very weary of the channel because it's straight up Gnosticism minus the gospel.
Well, I think who do you actually listen to for flat Earth stuff? Because most of the people that I listen to that have good information are actually agnostic.
Right.
So are there actual Christians out there that are going for flat Earth, or
Skiba's the closest, and I think Skiba's saved. Skiba's got some good stuff with testingtheglobe.com. There's a few good videos, but they're not usually done by channels. So you can find some videos. I haven't really, the flat Earth has been off of my radar for a little over a year and a half.
Well, good thing I attacked you right now.
Right? Well, I mean,
I can stick that shiv in your side.
Right?
Be all done.
I mean, I just don't talk about it much. If anybody, a lot of people on this channel, I mean, Daniel and I have been flat earthers as long as the channel's been up. And there's people who have probably watched 80% of the videos and wouldn't have even known that we believe it. It's just not a real big issue. Now, I've used it, and actually pretty recently, to help soul win a couple times, and I try to find flat earth arenas to jump in, groups or whether it's on Facebook or Google Plus or different places, just so that I can, share the truth of the gospel in there. But like you just said, Max, they're so infested with Gnostic, atheist.
The only Christian flat earther that I know of is actually Rob Skiba, and of course yourself. But all the people that I've been watching, no, they're all agnostic, and they don't get their view of the world from the Bible. They get it from what they visually see, and I can understand that.
Well, and that's why I really think this is going to be used for the Great Deception because of what you're seeing.
Yeah, that's the thing. I think it could possibly be the Great Deception, and I'm open to that I could be being deceived. Yes, I believe in the ball earth, but no one can prove to me that works. And so, yeah, I kind of in the flat earth camp, but there are certain problems you have to fix before I can go there. And that's where I'm at.
I gotcha. Daniel, I'll throw it to you in just 1 second. To answer Stephen Kennedy. Question Dean Odell. We got his book in the mail today. I need to message him and let him know that I got it. I asked him if he would come on Talkin Doctrine and talk to me about the gospel because he is a flat earth preacher who does believe a different gospel. Started the book already. Lord willing to be finished within a couple weeks, and then hopefully we'll have him on the panel to talk about his book and the different gospels that we each believe. So I just wanted to reference that real quick. And but Daniel, go ahead.
Do we actually believe different gospels?
Oh, Dean Odell, yeah. Dean Odell does believe a different gospel than me. I'm reading his book right now. And in fact, well, we'll get into it another time. He's definitely trusting in works for sure. But Daniel, go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to say, Max, but what Mathias believes, and I'm actually leaning this way too, is that the flat earth disclosure is part of the means that the Antichrist will deceive by saying, hey guys, y'all have been lied to your whole lives. This is the real truth, and you can trust me. I am Jesus, or whatever, however he's going to do it. So, that's what he meant by that it's going to be part of the deception. So it's like,
yeah, I understand that.
Both sides
the grand deception, and I understand all that with what's going on, and all I can say is I'm just a man who's making my way through life, doing stuff, and I look at things, and I came to the Bible through science, period. And so I go through science trying to prove everything else. And that's how I go.
Right. And that's cool. But like I said, ultimately it's really going to come down to, like I said, you can't really prove it because there's so many counter arguments and plausible explanations for just about everything. Of course, I'm not that smart either. So,
well, does anyone believe that guy sent Tesla up to space?
Well, it's real because it looks so fake.
Oh, that's what he said.
Exactly.
But that is the most ridiculous thing I've ever seen in my life, and they're passing that off as real. Like that's actually space. That's actually what's going on. That is the most ridiculous thing I've ever seen in my life.
Well, they mock the general public. They
well,
do
it can't be CGI because we have better CGI programs to make it look better.
So that made it real. That's awesome.
You got air in your tires, and you're throwing it up into space in a perfect vacuum, and the tires don't explode. Fine. The windshield doesn't explode. Fine. Whatever. We'll just pretend. We'll just pretend we're all in Star Wars.
He even said that there's nothing special about the vehicle, the normal seats and everything. It's
exactly. Like, he said exactly that it nothing.
Right. And like, wait, doesn't it change from like hundreds of degrees from not being in the sun and
Well,
being in the sun instantly,
from
supposedly for the
From
astronauts.
what they tell me, it's like 200,000 degrees outside the atmosphere. But I don't know because I've never been up there.
Maybe that's like maybe that's the most ingenious marketing tool. Buy my car; it can survive space.
Right. Right, it won't get pulled apart.
Okay.
Now that was a great point that you said earlier, Max. The fact, and I don't know if too many people picked up on it, the pressure that people get by going deep in the ocean, having that water weight on top of you, is so extreme that they have super massive construction for these submarines as they can go down, and they can only go down to a certain point because they can't
And
make them
They
strong.
don't go down very far either.
Right, compared to how far it probably
1,000,
does.
1,000 to 1,500 feet maximum.
So with that pressure going inwardly in a complete vacuum, not just at a 30 CFM, but a complete vacuum, it would be way more pressure pulling outwardly than going to the bottom of the ocean and the pressure pushing inwardly.
Exactly, but we can do that in 1960. We love that.
That's insane.
I got my cloth
Wait.
suit, man. I'm ready to go.
I think Daniel was talking.
Papier-mâché.
Daniel was talking about this earlier. Like, think about there's got to be a point to where this magic atmosphere that keeps everything.
Oh yeah, magic. And
Right.
here's where I'm going to get on the flat Earth, and I'm going to be on the flat Earth side. Is that there is no such thing as a magic atmosphere. You cannot have a pressurized system and then say that there is a non-pressurized system outside of that.
Right.
You
That's what I
cannot
was.
have that.
Right.
It does not exist anywhere on the planet, and it's fantasy.
Well, and if it did, what kind of pressure would there be at the connection point of these things? Where the shuttle actually goes out from the spinning of the ball,
Just
keeps
all
it
of a
all
sudden
together.
there's no gravity anymore. There's no nothing, and we're just out in space. And
Right.
rockets can't work in space. It's been proven. So
Well, I also asked, how does the rocket transition from an atmosphere spinning at 1,000 miles per hour into a vacuum and back
gravity.
when our buildings can't even hardly stand 100 miles per hour, but yet they can withstand 1,000? It just
It's
doesn't make
gravity.
sense.
It's gravity. Gravity. Every
gravity
time I ask a question about these things. Now, see, I'm not a flat earther, but I ask questions about these things because there are serious problems with the science. And I ask questions about gravity. Gravity did. Well, no, gravity can't do that. And if you're going to say gravity can do that, then why isn't gravity holding down the birds? Why isn't gravity holding down this? Why isn't gravity holding down that? There's a whole sort of other problems that come into when people make that argument. And, I am not a flat earther, but I understand the argument. I completely understand it. And I think it's pretty good argument. I don't know what else to say about it. It's good.
Well, I could see, because I'm not a flat earther either, obviously, but I could see the dome being around it, and we've never reached out in space. I could see that. I could toss that idea around that it's not possible. But to say it's flat and there's a dome, snow globe look, we can't, all of it together, it doesn't, I'm like you, Max, where I would have to see a model that works. I would have to see, because, you look at a lunar eclipse and it casts the Earth's shadow on the moon. My eyes tell me that, well, it's a circle. Explain why or show me a model, then I'd be on board.
Well,
Yeah,
but
and
there
here's
has been eclipses with the moon in the sky. Now, I can't tell you what exactly an eclipse is, but I can say that it's not the moon passing in front of the sun. I don't know what is passing in front of the sun.
Well,
I don't know how they're able to predict it.
here's the thing where we're like messed up on this is that we do not agree because we have models that work, and the flat Earth does not have a model that works. I can objectively view that what you're telling me is probably true, but we have these other problems that nobody else can explain, and it should be easy to explain. And the reason that I, entertain flat Earth a lot is because scientifically I can prove that what they're telling me is wrong. I can prove it. I can prove it for a fact. I can prove a lot of things with the flat Earth that are facts. But does that mean that the Earth is flat? No. It just means that what they're telling me is a lie. And we have these other problems that me and Brett talk about that really don't coincide with flat Earth. And I'm open to it and I'm fine with it, but I have to go back to like objective looking at science with this stuff. And it kind of looks like the Earth is a ball.
Yeah, and in my mind, it's simple. It's like, okay, we have a model, like you just said, Mathias. You can't explain it and how they can predict it. Well, I got a program that I can use, and I can predict it using that program, and it'll do exactly what we see. The phase of the moon and the shadow going across it, exactly the same time. So we have a model, and I'm willing to accept a flat Earth and things like that. Just someone make a model that works, then we could get away with from this, but it just hasn't happened.
What I'm saying is that I've seen eclipses with the moon in the northern sky and the sun in the eastern sky and go through a full eclipse. So I see the moon the whole time when an eclipse happens. So
yeah, but that doesn't
these
have anything to do
happen
with
these
flat
happen
Earth.
well, these happen twice a year on the earth and usually in remote places. But like how they're able to how it's happening, I don't know, is what I'm saying. Like,
Gravity.
I know I don't know what an eclipse
I
is, but I know what
I
it's
am
not.
totally going with gravity. Gravity did it.
Gravity.
I'm gonna go with magic.
Well, I like magic. Gravity and magic seem to go hand in hand with the magic atmosphere. And
Well, don't forget the magic spacesuits that went through the Van Allen belt.
Oh my God. Are we gonna talk about the moon now? I'm gonna go.
well, actually, that's what I was going to actually bring up to Brett. I'm glad you said that, Daniel. Brett, the Van Allen radiation belts. If you believe in the moon landing, that it could be true.
I don't think that anybody on this channel believes in the moon landing.
No, Brett already said he thinks it does.
Well, I just said I can believe it was faked. I can believe it both ways.
I got you.
I just don't have any proof either way, so I can't make a educated decision on saying whether or not it is or not because I don't know. I'm just a plumber in Ohio with no scientific background or no connections.
Oh, don't discount yourself, man.
Right, you actually can. That's one of the things that's great about flat Earth, and I think Max even brought it up earlier. It's because you can actually take the science out of the experts' hands and do observable, common sense experiments. That's what one of the things PillBox was saying with his 21-foot sundial. One of the experiments that I did was put a string on as long as distance as you can get inside your house. and put it low to the ground and put a flashlight on it and put a video camera on the ground facing it, that string from a distance, and start pulling the flashlight your way. And you'll see, if you have it past the flashlight, past the horizon line, you'll see how when it gets at the horizon line, how it looks exactly like it's coming up, and the perspective as if it's rising. And then as it's getting closer to you, it looks like it's rising overhead or overhead. And then right when you get it right above your head, just like in the heat of the day, it looks like it's right above you. And so I can do these little hands-on science experiments that actually give me uh, an example, a test of how the perspective would work, and it fits perfectly. So I love how there's a bunch of these little tests that everyone can do in their own.
You know what I think is funny is that I was going to come up here and do fisticuffs with you about flat Earth, and I think my arguments are actually better than yours about flat Earth.
I was gonna say I needed a new partner. Max seemed to be flat earthing it.
Well, everybody thinks I'm a flat earther, and that's fine. And I have really good arguments for all of that. And I forget what his name was, but he's a pilot, and he had 30 years, and he knows. You got this thing called a gyroscope, and a gyroscope does not work on a globe. And all pilots should be flat earthers, period. And that's just how it goes.
If your gyroscope's calibrated to gravity, though.
Oh, gravity. See, it always comes back to gravity, doesn't it?
Not even in that one, though. They tried to say it's some sort of electronic mean.
Yeah.
When they find out that it's just a mechanical.
What happens is instead of using a mechanical gyroscope, they use a electronic one now. So they can manipulate whatever they want to tell you. But a mechanical gyroscope is centrifugal force. That's it. And you should be flying off into space if you're trying to stay level on your plane. That's just it. That's just how it goes. And
what do you think about of a electric universe?
That has to do with like David Icke and stuff like that, and people being electric bodies and in the force and all that. And it's kind of really new age. And I was into that 4 years ago, 5 years ago, something like that. I don't know. Anyways, I know that some of that stuff works, but I don't believe in it.
Well, unfortunately, I might have to call it here real quick.
Yeah, I think we are too, because it's been like 3 hours.
Right, I was about to say we are getting into to tomorrow already. A 1 hour into tomorrow if you're in Central Time Zone. I do appreciate everybody coming on. I want to throw it around and let everybody say bye to everyone, and we'll call it a night. But I do also want to, wish everybody happy Resurrection Day. I don't like the bunny and
it's going to be fun tomorrow.
Right? I don't like the bunny and the eggs, but
happy Pagan Day.
Glorifying the empty tomb is a great thing. And what's funny is this is the first year that I know of in my lifetime, and I could be wrong. That Passover and Easter, Ishtar, how some people would say, line up on the same day. But it doesn't matter exactly when exactly what day he rose. I think we can tell by the signs in the sky if you're using a lunar calendar. But it doesn't matter. Right? We should be celebrating the resurrection and birth of Christ every day and sharing his gospel with all whom the Lord gives opportunity for us to. So I believe we'll be having the broadcast tomorrow on Sin City Preacher, and then also testimony time tomorrow evening. It'll be a simulcast here on Talkin Doctrine as well. So starting with Brett, then we'll go Max, Daniel, and then we'll close it out. So Brett, if you just want to give some sign off, plug your channel real quick, and I'll put it in the description as well.
Yeah, thanks for having me, man. It's been fun. Yeah, you can go to my YouTube channel. Just look up Last Generation. I only have one flat Earth video. I don't I don't get into this, but I stick to the Bible scriptures about prophecy today, basically, and talk about where we are. Simple fact that Israel becoming a nation in 1947 after 2,000 years. Is that prophetic, or is it just a coincidence? I start with that and then go on to know where we are. But yeah, it's been fun, man. I like these conversations with you guys. You guys are very generous and honest about everything, and have a good time.
No, come on, man. We're all crazy.
Yeah, except you. You're a little bit crazy.
A little bit crazy.
Still don't know whether you're flat or round. I don't know. I don't know. 3 hours later, still don't know.
Yeah, well, that's the idea.
Well, how about a sign off, Max?
All right. This is Max Bauer, and thank you for coming to Talking Doctrine and our discussion about flat Earth and, what we have to say about that. And I think it's all good, and I think it's good for people to. I think the most important thing, whether or not you agree with flat Earth, round Earth, doesn't really matter. What's important is that you discover things for yourself. And I think that is fantastic. And there's a lot of people out here who discover things for themselves. And that's what I have to say about that.
Amen. Amen.
Amen.
Daniel?
Yeah, I appreciate you guys coming on and really enjoyed the discussion. And one thing, real quick, Brett, what you were talking about Israel, I do think you probably think it's also very interesting that this is the 70th year since that nation was founded again, reestablished. So, this generation is very interesting on that 70-year point. But anyway, I agree with Max too on that don't just take somebody's word for it, hook, line, and sinker. Do your own research. There's a quote that I like. It's the mark of an educated mind to be able to entertain a thought without accepting it. And that's what I've seen in a lot of these discussions with people. Before they will intellectually entertain an idea, they just shut it off and say that's stupid, and they start calling names and hurling insults. And it's like, do you not want to at least learn, And it just shows the mark of an indoctrinated mind that can't even question. And so, that's pretty much what these kind of discussions are about, and I enjoy it. And the way I look at it, everybody can have their opinion and discussion, while I feel like I'm just sitting over here in God's terrarium, just enjoying life and what He's done for me. So the biggest thing is we just want to promote the gospel of Christ, that Christ made man right with Him through Jesus Christ. He forgave our sins. People are welcome to come to Him. They just have to believe that He's the reason why they get to go. They can't do it themselves. So that's the main thing that we focus on. But these little side topics. It's just interesting for us to grow and learn other views, and to be able to sharpen swords, as Matthias says. So look forward to having you guys on another time, and maybe on some other topics too. So um, thanks again.
Right. My sentiments exactly. I was going to say, well, definitely Max is coming on for a dispensation, and actually Brett too, possibly. So for that one, we'll be they'll be more closer aligned, and they'll be more.
You're gonna have me on for a dispensation? Really?
Right?
Really?
Yeah.
Do I have to get my boxing gloves out now?
Right.
Do I have to do that?
In this corner, in the black trunks.
Well, you talk.
But
think
no, it'll
we know
be
how to push his buttons now.
exactly. It'll be fun. It'll be fun. And to the chat room, thank you guys for joining. Just one last time, guys. This is not an essential of the faith. This doesn't determine someone's salvation. I just want to extend to everybody, as long as you know that you know that you know that you're going to heaven, that God has given you the assurance of your salvation, and that you know that you're eternally secure. Things like what we talked about tonight matter not. If you don't know that, again, things like we talked about tonight matter not. But my prayer is that you'll get in His Word, ask for Him to give you His understanding, and so that you can come to a full realization that what He did on the cross was satisfactory to holy God, that you too could rest in it as well. And so that's what matters most. That's what all of us on the panel, I'll speak for every one of them, that's what all of us care about. And that's why we spend the time doing what we do. We'll talk about these off topics, but if anybody doesn't know Jesus Christ, you can email us at Talkin Doctrine with any questions you have, and we'll just point you to the verses that will make it clear where God is, what He's telling you, and let Him explain it to you. So again, thank you for joining us this evening. It's always a pleasure having everybody in with the fellowship. Sorry that it got a little bit heated. I knew it would a little bit in the chat room with this topic, but Lord willing, by example of what we gave on the panel, how to treat brothers with charity, even when we disagree, hopefully that was exemplified and something that people can use to make part of their lives as well. So that's my prayer. You guys take care. Have a wonderful and blessed day. We'll see you tomorrow. God bless.